think I'm going out. And we're live apparently. Just hello everybody, just popping in a wee minute early. See Babs has been chatting there a wee bit. Hi Babs, how are you doing? Babs says, evening Doc, hope your weather has been nice as ours today. I'm thinking spring showed up. How do you all? Babs, it's freezing here. It's been quite nice and sunny. But we've had a couple of heavy rain showers actually in between, but then it's just gotten really cold here. Quite, just recently actually, excuse me, in the early evening there. So I'm foundered at the minute. Start saying the door, feeling very conscious, begins tiptoeing towards the door. Resend the live notifications, not playful, wishing his door closes, I'll be back. So there we go. So if anybody else is joining us out there in YouTube land, do say hello. And I just wanted to actually grab something here very quickly. Bear with me a wee second. Which was, here we go. We email. Let me see. Just bring this up on the document. There we go. Just thought this was from Cynthia, and I just thought I haven't had a chance to sort of respond to it. Been very busy this week, folks. So thank you very much for your patience. In terms of not being able to go ahead with the Dune Book Club last week, there, I was absolutely shattered. Excuse me a wee second. Absolutely knackered. There we go. And so this is a few things from Cynthia just in relation to the last chapter. Since I often have to leave early, thought I'd send along a few additional comments regarding the chapter 7 in June. Leto's first comments to Jessica are on the new home. I think you might have lost yourself in this. Oh, here, hang on. That's the wrong one, isn't it? Hang on. Yeah, that is the wrong one. I need to read the next email. Sorry, there we go. Goodness gracious. Right. Hang on. I'll tell you what, I'll just read it from here. Actually, I'll zoom that in a wee bit, just to get us going today. So, sorry. Hi. I hope you were able to enjoy some well-deserved rest last weekend. Thanks for the Tiger video based on your recommendations during a Friday sci-fi chat. I read the novel to my husband a couple of months ago. I have encountered The Demolished Man many years ago, but had never gotten around to Baster's other novel. It was great fun. I have a few thoughts and partially baked observations about the banquet scene in June. And I've long thought that Jessica's Bene Gesserit trained capacity for observation was at a low ebb in several instances in this scene, echoing some of Leto's own tendencies and limitations. So just to run through this, Jessica's continually surprised when women at the table say something fitting or intelligent and quickly decides that they've been instructed beforehand in what to say, as if she is the only female in the room capable of independent thought. When the stillsuit manufacturer's daughter replies to Halleck that violence is offensive, Jessica makes another stereotype decision and imagines that it fits a pattern of seduction. Jessica rapidly picks an all too easy possibility, excuse me, a sexual trap for her vulnerable son, and deems it fact. While it could be true, Herbert doesn't give the reader anything in the text that supports this. Leto has a similar point of view about women. At the start of the chapter, he lumps all the women in the room into a single type: decorative, untouchable, and sensuous, even his wife. So both Leto and Jessica have blinders on regarding what can be gleaned from the female attendees at this event. Perhaps this is a part of a larger pattern of misogyny in the Thufir system, which even the Bene Gesserit trained Jessica has imbibed a social Shaw-Mercury, if you like. That's a good point. I think I think the Thufir system's very, I think, obviously misogynistic. Yeah, I suppose it's interesting to consider the Bene Gesserit's part and role within that. And we'll see a little bit of that tonight, actually, whenever we look at this chapter 17. So just on with Cynthia's comments, Jessica's stated reasons for inviting the smuggler Chewik to the banquet don't make sense. Thanks very much, love. If Chewik is known by most or all of the guests and has already dined at many of their houses, there is nothing mysterious or unique about his presence at the Atreides dinner. In fact, Chewik seems to have his own agenda. Only later does Jessica realize that there's a connection between Kynes and Chewik that she doesn't understand or control. In line with Leto, her thoughts that Chewik can be bribed to provide escape ships suggest that she shares her partner's vague hope that whatever dangers they may face, escape off-world will be possible. Both significantly underestimate what the trap is and the scope of the danger posed not only by their arch enemy, the Harkonnens, but also by the Emperor and his allies. I always think that there is we're kind of well advised that we know that the Emperor's behind everything. Yet the Atreides focus is very much on the Harkonnen. So Jessica, just going on here, Jessica listens to the Guild Bank representative and determines that his language pattern marks him as being from Giedi Prime, making him a Harkonnen agent. Her first follow-up question sounds fruitful. Does this mean the Guild itself has taken sides against House Atreides? Unfortunately, she glosses over his clear association with the Guild and decides that he must be a Harkonnen agent and nothing else. Yet the conversations throughout the whole banquet scene reveal complex power relationships on Arrakis, and any doubt about the motivations of this aggressive Guild banker should concern her, as it might touch on larger Guild allegiances and impact her ability to flee the planet. No political thinker of her stature should be fooled that by official neutrality of the Guild, or should be fooled, by the official neutrality of the Guild, by resorting to the familiar idea that House Atreides has only one enemy. A chance to tease out why the Guild banker is afraid of Kynes eludes her, perhaps because she's not asking the right questions. Excuse me. Leto, not surprisingly, also seems to lump anything distasteful or questionable into the category Harkonnen. At the beginning of the chapter, when he learns of the custom of the laving basins, Leto immediately decides that this was put in place by the Harkonnens, a typical degradation of the spirit. This could be true, but there are other explanations. Didn't the Count and Lady Fenring live in this house previously? Maybe it was their custom. Maybe it predated both the Harkonnens and the Imperial ambassadors. Leto doesn't care about these other possibilities. He calls it Harkonnen so that he can make a public demonstration of changing the custom and showing that he is better than they were. And the term Harkonnen is pretty much a degradation, isn't it, from the Atreides? And at the end of the chapter, Jessica is critical of Paul's final comments to their guests. She thinks he's boasting and doesn't find that appropriate. Her context, of course, is the coded part of Leto's message about the discovery of a lasgun shipment. However, Paul hadn't seen this secret message yet. He was only responding to the public announcement regarding the discovery of the missing carryall. While it may be true that sitting in his father's chair for part of the dinner had gone to Paul's head, I think Paul is trying out his rumoured powers, his possible futures, making a first approximation perhaps. Back in chapter 14, when Leto met with Paul and spoke of his decision to have Hawat investigate the possibility that Jessica was a spy, Paul was described as working through the film clips his father had given him about Fremen religious practices. His father hadn't seemed interested in the research on these customs, but Paul was riveted by references to himself. What power might he have by assuming a religious mantle? And how might it relate to the deeper capacities of the Reverend Mother had hinted of? Leto was unaware of his son's preoccupation as he launched into his own concerns about Jessica and their situation. The events of chapter 15 begin immediately after their conversation. When Leto thanks Kynes for the still suits, Paul quotes from the OC Bible. The text says he did this on impulse, but I wouldn't call it random. It's likely he was still thinking about the film clips about religious beliefs on Arrakis. I think this was a deliberate attempt to step into a religious role. It was an experiment, perhaps, to see what would happen, and it was successful. Kynes, as escort, and the scientist himself responded. Given Paul's first attempt at taking on new language patterns, new roles in chapter 15, I think we can read his final words in chapter 16 in a similar light. At the dinner table, Paul was given the opportunity to represent his father, and once again he was experimenting, this time with the familiar ducal proclamations and propaganda. The fact that Jessica interprets this as adolescent boasting may also indicate that she misses the profound impact that the recent revelations of potential and promise have had on her son. He's changing faster than she yet realizes. Here, Jessica again resembles Leto in her observations of Paul, letting the realization that their situation is desperate cloud what she sees. Taken together, I wonder if we're watching a low point in Jessica's abilities. Just lost that there. Even as we glimpsed Leto at a low point earlier, perhaps Herbert is giving us dual moments of enlightenment when the reader discovers that she, along with Leto, is human with human flesh. Very good point. So interesting pattern in surrounding chapters in light of this reading. So chapter 14, Leto talks with Paul while distracted and despondent. Leto rises to the occasion in chapter 15 with the spice mining trip, saving the lives of the spice hunters. Kynes approves. In chapter 16, Jessica missing many clues or observations, more than we expect, giving her training and abilities. Kynes approves. And in chapter 17, Jessica rises to the occasion when faced with the accusation that she is a spy, carefully calibrating how she describes and uses her abilities in her confrontation with Hawat. We're going to have a good look at that tonight, aren't we? In Jessica's favour, Cynthia says, I do think she handles Kynes very well in the banquet scene. She surely received a detailed report of Kynes from the spice mining trip and seems to know exactly what subjects to address and how to impress him. Her abilities are certainly intact there, and that may be why I find her other missteps so glaring or curious. As with my earlier comments, I don't know what any of this has significant bearing on the book's larger meaning. Mostly it's character development. I just wanted to share what's been emerging of late as I work slowly through the text alongside our book club discussions. Also, as before, I hope you're enjoying looking this over. You're under no obligation to respond in detail. Thanks for your work preparing these online sessions. Cheers, Cynthia. No problem at all, Cynthia. And I hope you don't mind me reading that out that way, because I thought that was just the best way to run through all the points in it. And I'll quickly, just because I've been reading through that, I'll quickly just catch up with everybody there. So there's Keith saying hi. Excuse me. Babs saying evening, Doc. Again, evening, Babs. And then Cynthia. Hello, Cynthia. And thank you so much for the email. A lot of good points there. And I think there are certainly the whole Leto thing. In terms of, I suppose, the overlay of the idea of the goddess, if you like. I do think that Leto and Jessica sort of bounce around in their roles in a little way, if you see what I mean. And I think there's definitely a fair amount of stuff that kind of we get these reiterations of behavior and patterns, as you say. It is tricky to figure out how it all fits in. What's sort of casual mention, what's action, what Herbert's really focusing on, and what he's driving for. So thank you so much, Cynthia. I've had a bit of a mad couple of weeks actually, so I do apologise in terms of just trying to get back at the work, etc., and catch up with comments and things like that. So thank you once again. Bab's saying, howdy Keith, howdy Cynthia. There's Joseph Smith, Dune fan, saying hello all. Hi Joseph, thanks for joining us. And Babs was saying, as for escape from Dune requiring smugglers, I thought House Atomics required the guild to provide houses anonymous passage to the safe place. There is something in place actually, yeah. We're going to get a mention of Tupile today, actually, in this chapter, and it's a subtle little one. And there was something actually I wanted to have a quick look at, or maybe encountered as we move along. Yeah, particularly to do with how Jessica sets up the room. This chair that she has the cover of an animal known as a schlag. It's schlag skin. So the animal schlag is native to Tupile. And we'll have a wee nosy at it. But there's something to do with I'm trying to figure out how it works. There is some sort of an agreement, and I think it must be between the guild and the various houses of the Landsraad in terms of facilitating escape outside of the Empire. So clearly, why wouldn't the Empire follow these houses to Tupile if it's particular house? The High Council, the Landsraad Inner Circle, empowered to act as supreme tribunal in house-to-house disputes. That's what I was thinking on today, but we'll get to it in a wee bit, I suppose. So everybody, thank you very much for your patience. I sat and worked away at the Tiger video for I suppose right through a night or two, and because I have an odd sort of hello Holly, an odd sort of sleep disorder, it kind of left me a bit wiped out, where I ended up not sleeping for a couple of days and then just zonked out. So I do apologize. It's just part of who I am, unfortunately. But we're all caught up anyway, and so there's a new video on Tiger online. Hopefully with virtually no spoilers in it. The idea was really just to sell that book to some people and to encourage people to read it, and I hope you enjoy it. For anybody who hasn't read it, and we're ready to get on with chapter 17, I suppose. So let's get cracking, folks. And we start. Oh dear, we've got two doggies on here now. Hello, ladies. He's all right. So yeah, I suppose welcome to the doghouse, everybody. I suppose it was pointed out to me at some point I really should introduce myself the odd time. I'm just not used to people being on here. But Doc Sloan's my name. So I'm Dr. Russell Sloan. Thank you very much for joining me. So our epigraph tonight. This is an interesting little chapter. I thought it starts off a certain way. It's a bit misdirecting, I think, and it leads to pretty much an interesting confrontation between Jessica and Thufir Hawat. So our epigraph is a one-line epigraph to start the chapter. Nice and short. There is no escape. We pay for the violence of our ancestors. Nothing could be. I've just written very true. It's a very true statement. And I suppose in that sense, the violence of our ancestors tends to perpetuate and has consequences that carry on from generation to generation. Hello, Big Sausage. What are you doing? I've got a doggy right under the table here who's hopefully somebody trying to get them out for a walk or something. Yeah. Ah, there you go. What are you at, Holly? Holly likes to play games with whoever's trying to harness her, so she's tucked under my table to make it difficult for me. There you go. Give us 1 wee second, folks. Come on, big love. Out you go. That's a girl. There we go. Thank you very much. There we go. Doggies away from the doghouse. How sad. That's their natural environment. Excuse me. So yes, indeed, the violence of our ancestors. So straight up, this is the Drunken Duncan, as I like to call it, chapter. It starts off with really a bit of a disturbance, and we're going to follow Jessica through this chapter. And this disturbance is ultimately going to lead to a confrontation between Jessica and Thufir Hawat. And this confrontation in itself, I suppose, it's going to reveal all sorts of things to us. And I think this is really the last chapter before things just start going particularly badly. And we'll have a little run of chapters down to the end of the first book. So we're at chapter 17. And chapter 22 will take us to the end of part 1 of Dune. Pardon me. And then we'll be starting book 2, which is Muad'Dib. So, excuse me. Yeah, as I said, it's a very, very true statement. So we're started off with Jessica in bed, and she hears a disturbance, senses that it's in the Great Hall. She turns on her light, and we get a few wee details here that help with the verisimilitude of the story. I think her clock has not been properly adjusted to local time. Mentally, she subtracts 21 minutes in her head to determine that it's around 2 a.m. So we get a wee sense of time as always. Whatever the disturbance is, it's loud and incoherent. And immediately she wonders, is this the Harkonnen attack? So that fear straight away in her mind. And she checks the screen monitors to see where her family are. So getting a little sense of where is everybody at. We're told that Paul's asleep. He's been moved to a deep cellar room that's hastily been converted to a bedroom for him, obviously after the attack. And that whatever's going on, he can't hear it down there. There's nobody in the Duke's room. He's not there. His bed's unslept in, which means he's still at the command post. And of course, we're given a little bit of we're also told that, again, there's no screens yet at the front of the house, so there's gaps in the security. And essentially, she takes a sense of what's going on. She stands in the middle of the room listening. Excuse me. And we can hear that there's one shouting incoherent voice. Someone's calling for Dr. Yui. So Jessica gets dressed. And we're told she puts her robe over her shoulders, feet into slippers, straps the crysknife to her leg. I've put a wee note here just for a giggle that if you were doing that in a film, wouldn't it make it a rather good kind of Evil Dead type montage? You know, just the robe, slippers, knife. I don't know, just my sense of whimsy there, folks. And again, a voice calling for Dr. Yui. And so she belts on the road, steps into the hallway, and again, her immediate thoughts are fearful. What if Leto is hurt? And they're for him. So off she goes running down this hall, with a sense of urgency, goes through the arch at the end, past the dining hall, all from the action the previous night, on down the passage to the Great Hall, and we're told it's brightly lit, with wall suspensors glowing at maximum, and here we find two house guards with Duncan Idaho. Duncan Idaho's head is rolled. There's an abrupt, panting silence to the scene, and he's clearly drunk. And of course, the guards being a bit belligerent to him. You see what you've done. You've woken up the lady Jessica. And we have this moment: the great draperies billowed behind the men, showing that the front door remained open. I think that's odd, isn't it? Again, all of this talk about security. Here's this great hall with the door open, and the curtains billowing in, the wind blowing in. No sign of the Duke or Yui. We're told that Mapes is off to one side, staring coldly at Duncan Idaho. She wears a long brown robe with a serpentine design at the hem. I was wondering, is that a worm design, possibly? Serpentine. Her feet were pushed into unlaced desert boots. And we get the start of this Drunken Duncan, Idaho. So I woke the lady Jessica. My sword, let's see, my sword was first blooded on Grumman. And of course, the reaction from Jessica: great mother, he's drunk. He's drunk as a skunk. Now, Duncan Idaho's being drunk is one of these things that we've discussed before, I think, with a couple of people, actually. I think, and I think the debate that we had was he really drunk? And I was kind of half and half. I think maybe yes, maybe no, but in this sense, I actually think he is. Grumman. Let's have a quick look. So we're told Grumman is the second planet of Naoshi, noted chiefly for the feud of its ruling house Moritani and House Ginas. I think we've had a wee look at that before. So this is and Duncan Idaho's drunken boast seems to be that he's killed an awful lot of people for the Duke. So we get a bit of a description for Duncan. We haven't really seen too much of him. We're told that he's a dark, round face, and it's drawn into a frown. His hair is curling like the fur of a black goat, and is plastered with dirt. A jagged rent in his tunic exposed an expanse of the dress shirt he had worn at the dinner party earlier. And Jessica crosses over to him. So, of course, I think the interaction here between the guards and Jessica is kind of interesting. The guards basically say, we don't know what to do with him. He's been creating a disturbance out front. So I think they've brought him in. He didn't want to come inside. The guards in this case are afraid that the locals might see him. That wouldn't do at all. Give us all a bad name. So he's being a bit embarrassing here. I'm going to get some wee comments about where he's been, and to do with the ladies. I think it's quite fun. Some of this makes us. I suppose we're just talking about reading Cynthia's comments about the previous chapter, the level of misogyny that's in the Dune universe within the Thufir system. I think we're seeing a little bit of it here. And these guards should respond to Jessica as in yes, ma'am, immediately. And they question her quite badly, I think. At certain points in this, they don't behave as if they would take orders from her. Or well, they do, but they're a bit. It's only, I think, whenever the man's name is invoked, I suppose. We'll see it as it comes up here. I think we're getting a wee bit ahead of ourselves. Excuse me. Well, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. So, and I think some of this is quite funny. Give him a bit. Where's he been? He's escorted one of the young ladies home from the dinner, my lady. Hawat's orders. Which young lady? One of the escort wenches. You understand, my lady. He glanced at Mapes, lowered his voice. They're always calling on Idaho for special surveillance of the ladies. And Jessica thought, so they are. But why is he drunk? And it's a funny statement, I have to say. And we've a couple of comments about the ladies as they're referred to here. And again, this is a little bit to do with what Cynthia was talking about in the previous chapter, how the various women are viewed by the male actors, if you like, in the banquet scene. That they're pretty much viewed as attachments of the male that they're with. A couple of them are, I think there's a sort of madam that runs the escort service, and this must be one of her girls. Now, the suggestion that she's some kind of spy master. Excuse me. So certainly, they're always and I like the nature of it. They're always calling on Idaho for special surveillance of the ladies. So this must be Idaho's special talent. When women need investigating, and this is Hawat sent him, by the way. Idaho's your man. And again, still not understanding why he's drunk. Jessica gets Mapes to bring a stimulant, suggests coffee. And they think they have some of the spiced coffee left. So Mapes takes off down to the kitchen with her unlaced boots slapping against the floor. And here we get Mr. Drunken Duncan Idaho. He stares at Jessica. So we get a few facts from him. He's killed over 300, killed more than 300 men for the Duke, he muttered. What do you want to know is why I'm here? Can't live on the ground here. Can't live on the ground here. What kind of place is this, huh? So an absolutely blue-toed, and Frank doing a little bit of phonetics for us there with the words. Absolutely blue-toed, Drunken Duncan Idaho, telling us that I'm boasting drunkenly, I suppose, that he's killed over 300 men for the Duke. You want to know why I'm here? He can't live under the ground. He can't live on the ground. What kind of place is this, huh? So this is a little bit of what's happening here with Duncan is possibly part of this malaise that Jessica detects, this the symptoms that she's talking about later. And I suppose I don't know in terms of is he drunk or not. I think the answer is yes all the way, except for one part. And that's the bit that makes me question: is he really drunk? Is he putting on an act for this? Let's see, where are we? One of this escort wedge, is it part of an attempt to infiltrate this sort of, I suppose, escort agency? So we get a sound from the side hall entry, caught Jessica's attention. Turned, saw Dr. Yui crossing the room with his medical kit, fully dressed, looking pale, exhausted, and his diamond tattoo standing out sharply. And Idaho, again, with a bit more of his drunkenness. Well, there's a good doctor. What do you do, Doc? Splint and Pillman? He turned blearily towards Jessica, making a damn fool of myself, huh? So yeah, he's making a damn fool of himself. And again, Jessica asks, why would he get drunk? Was he drugged? And it's a very good question for people. If we take the nature of reality in this universe, everything that's happened here, with the nature of danger around all corners, poison everywhere, assassins behind every doorway, and behind every shadow, you'd be exceptionally stupid to get drunk in this place, wouldn't you? You'd want to do it under serious lock and key with people protecting you, just to make sure that you're safe. There's Keith. Hi, Keith. Robe, slippers, knife, everything a girl needs. Absolutely. Do you know what I mean? I was thinking about those, the montage with Ash and Army of Darkness and things like that, Evil Dead 2, all the little close, the robe, slippers, knife, hey, ready for action. Absolutely. Everything a girl needs. Joseph Smith saying a feint within a feint, or just a good chance for a pint. I think Jessica would have been able to tell if he was faking being drunk. Yeah, probably, to be honest with you. I think it's a kind of a hindsight thing. I think it's something that's left over from the last time I read it, to be honest with you. But certainly based on the evidence here, I think everybody agrees he's absolutely hammered. So what's happened to Duncan Idaho? Too much spice beer. Dear, oh dear. So we'll have a wee chat about the spice beer. I don't think there's an entry at the back by any chance. I don't think. Probably just on. No. Beer with spice in it, beer with melange. So Mapes returns with the coffee, stands behind Yui, looks at Jessica, shakes her head, probably in disgust. Yui kind of brings the conversation out, and again, you just get this kind of sense of trying to help this drunk person. Spice beer, eh? Best damn stuff ever tasted. And again, we get this kind of tries to pull himself up to attention, this kind of thing, and just repeating himself with this. Isn't it my sword was first blooded on Grumman, killed a Harkonnen, killed him for the joke. So he can't even say the word Harkonnen. And you return, looked at the cup in Mape's hands. What's that? So we get again caffeine. One of our more acceptable drugs within the Dune universe. Drink this, lad, is what Yui says to him. And I just I wonder how old Idaho is at this point. And we get a rather petulant Duncan Idaho with Yui. I don't want any more. Drink it, I say, says Yui. And his head's wobbling, staggers forward, dragging the guards with him. And Idaho sort of says, just once. I think this is an interesting little drunken speech. What is it they say in Vino Veritas? I'm almighty fed up with pleasing the Imperial Universe, Doc. Just once, we're going to do the thing my way. After you drink this, Yui said, it's just coffee. Sprawly like all the rest of this place. Damn sun too bright. Nothing is a rigid colour. Everything right or wrong. So this is Idaho's sense of dislocation, I suppose. And we're going to have a chat about this. This is something that, as we go through this chapter, this is something that Jessica has noticed, but seemingly nobody else has. There's a sense of dislocation here for the men, mainly. And Idaho kind of voices it. He is drunk. He's not in any sense of control of himself if he's that hammered. His problems are that the sun is too bright. Nothing seems to be the right color. Everything feels wrong to him. And Yui sort of points out, well, it's nighttime now, And I actually, the one we note that I made here is that Idaho's running about a bit drunk here. Is the suspicion on Jessica, etc. But the one thing I wanted to point out is Idaho's been here longer than the rest of the Atreides. He's been out with the Fremen, hasn't he? And although he's been called back, he has been on Arrakis longer than everyone else. So in that sense, from the staff of House Atreides. So he should have had more time to acclimatise. And I think what we get in a sense as we go through this chapter is Jessica sort of seeing this kind of problem, understands that if it's maybe hit him now and it's hitting the other men slowly, it'll come to have a bigger impact on them. So drink this, good lad, make you feel better. I don't want to feel better. So very, very sort of typically petulant, a bit not particularly helpful drunk. And we get this first instance here where Jessica comes in and says, we can't argue with him all night, Jessica said. And she thought, this calls for shock treatment. So I've written down, this is shock treatment number 1. We're going to get a fair bit of shock treatment from Jessica here in this chapter. And kind of the way it's laid out for us, you kind of make us, kind of certainly for myself, I don't know about you guys, made me think, what's this? What's the shock that's coming? And I think it's played quite well throughout this chapter. And the first shock really it's not what I was thinking anyway, but she just gives him a good smack across the face, doesn't she? Slaps Idaho across the street cheek. Let me just check this. And so Jessica's theory of shock treatment, I think, is the thing that is a thread that runs through this. And I kind of almost, well, apart from the slap in the face here, I almost want to equate the idea of shock treatment with the use of Bene Gesserit abilities. But here it's just a real slap in the face. Calls for shock treatment. There's no reason for you to stay, my lady. Yuri said, I can take care of this. Jessica shook her head. She stepped forward, slapped Idaho sharply across the cheek. He stumbled back with his guards glaring at her. And There we go. The shock treatment for Duncan here is a good old smack across the face. No way to act in your duke's home. She snatches the cup, spills some of it, and thrusts the cup at Idaho. You drink this now. Now drink this. That's an order. Excuse me. Just before we go on with this, I'm going to flip over the page here. I've just made a wee question to myself. Is this the right strategy here? And I've just put, is she angry? Or is she afraid? Is she impatient? Is she disgusted? And then possibly, is she all of the above? But yeah, it's a violent response, but it's what she calls shock treatment. And I don't, the word treatment there is interesting, I suppose. So yeah, I'm just wondering again. Not too sure if is it something that's out of character for Jessica, and but the way that Cynthia was discussing about her abilities being slightly diminished, that all of this stress and etc. is affecting everybody, I suppose. And is this I just sort of questioned, is this the right response here? Is she angry? Is she afraid? Is she impatient? Is she disgusted? But it is a choice that she makes here. It's time for a bit of shock treatment. And maybe it's just a way of venting. Certainly, if Idaho's response here. Here we go. Idaho jerked himself upright, scowling down at her. He spoke slowly with careful and precise enunciation. I do not take orders from a damn Harkonnen spy. Yui stiffened, whirled to face Jessica. So that was the bit that I was wondering, is he really that drunk? Maybe is it a supreme act that we're told that Jessica could do, for example. But I think it's the agitation, the slap has probably just shaken him out of this, and out that comes. It's the slow, careful, precise enunciation. And I wasn't sure, is that venom? Is it that hatred that brings out that level of control? Or is it simply that that's what he has to do to try and overcome how drunk he is? But as I said, I don't think he's that. I don't think it is an act, to be honest with you. I had sort of questioned it before. Keith says, I think Jessica would have been able to tell if he was faking being drunk. I said, yeah, it's most likely. And I love how the solution comes to be spiced coffee. The pumpkin spice must flow. Hector Mariani, hello Hector. It does establish the low morale among the ranks theme later on. Absolutely. Yeah, as I said, we're going to run with that. But this is Duncan's malaise. Duncan's being absolutely drunk and seemingly depressed and dislocated, I think. Is going to be something that we're going to, whenever Jessica's talking to Thufir about this, it's something that seems to be affecting the men in the barracks, certainly at the staff at that level anyway. So there we go. But yeah, I don't think it's. But I think either that must be, it's either the whole thing has either the anger of thinking that she's a Harkonnen spy, which would suggest he's not in on it, or just it's just that it's taken a supreme level of effort to speak normally because he's that drunk. So Jessica's response here. Physically, her face goes pale. She's nodding. Yeah. It all just ping. What he does here, he speaks slowly, careful, precise. I do not take orders from a damn Harkonnen spy. And Yui stiffing, whirling to face it. All makes sense. She's gone pale. Nodding. All become clear to her. Broken stems of meaning. Well, that was an interesting metaphor there. Broken stems suggests flowers. She had seen in words and actions over the past few days. All of this can be translated. It now makes sense to her. And again, this is the thing that's been building with a number of the characters here. And the characters that are pretty good at containing this or dealing with it is Jessica and Paul. But here, this is her anger. And we've seen Leto's anger building changing subtly, building, diminishing, etc., over several chapters. Often we have this sense of bitterness with Jessica rather than any real anger. But this is it. This is the anger, and it's Let me just find this wee quote here. She found herself in the grip of anger, almost too great to contain, almost too great to contain, and it takes a profound use of her Bene Gesserit training. And I was just wondering about this here. The most profound of her Bene Gesserit training, it took the most profound of her Bene Gesserit training, is what it says in my book. And I'm wondering if I lost another word. I think, is that another misprint in my book? And this edition here would be page 160. What it actually says here, let me see. It took the most profound of her Bene Gesserit training to quiet her pulse and smooth her breathing. That doesn't make sense in English. So I think it took the most profound use of her Bene Gesserit training to quiet her pulse and smooth her breathing. That makes sense. So I think I'm missing another word there. Dear, oh dear. I don't know if anybody's got the page, if anybody can confirm that for me or not. But we've just been mentioning it for anybody who's been joining us. I'm working with this book. This is the 50th anniversary edition. It's published by Hawat, and it's been repackaged for the film. We've been debating whether it's going to survive or not, but I'm using this book basically for full, to annotate, etc. Though I have another copy of Dune, but we've been noticing an awful lot of misprints and missing words. It's getting to be at least one or two a chapter almost at the minute, I think. Not a good thing for a book that's been in print since 1965, I think. So we get a little bit of Bene Gesserit training in use here. She uses it to quiet her pulse, smooth her breathing, and even then we're told that she can feel the blaze flickering, her anger, as described like there's not like a, I suppose, was it the blaze? Let me just read this. Even then she could feel the blaze flickering, and it gives us, I suppose, that the blaze itself, I think flickering seems almost slightly diminished, but the word blaze, I think, is quite powerful, and in suggestion of her anger. It's contained, but it's huge. I think in this case she's very, very angry. Cynthia, Duncan's clear accusation that Jessica is a spy suggests that Thufir told Duncan that she was a spy. Yeah, not that he is to watch her because she's under suspicion. Yeah, I mean, it's a statement from him, isn't it? I don't take orders from a damn Harkonnen spy. And I suppose that if they don't trust Jessica to maintain an act, then why would they trust Duncan? Yeah, so I'd agree. Cynthia, he's pretty much probably been told she's a spy. It is a very stupid idea, and I would suggest that my text, Cynthia says, Ace Paperback reads the same as your text. I'm wondering if it is a page, an word drop or something. I don't know. Sometimes you get them, I suppose. Once I have no problem. Let's have a wee quick nosy at this one. Oh, hang on. Happy days. I found the right page. Color plate by John Schoner. Let's see. Yeah, it's the same in this one as well. Must be just the writing of Frank, I suppose. There you go. I think it should have another word there. But there you go. That's just me. So, and we get this, yeah. So containing this anger, and then we get this little comment, I suppose, about, I've written here, the ladies again. They were always calling on Idaho for surveillance of the ladies. She shot a glance at Yui. The doctor lowered his eyes. You know this? She demanded. I heard rumors, my lady, but I didn't want to add to your burdens. So this immediately, I suppose, this all of this is setting up the encounter really between Jessica and Thufir to come, and she goes there straight away. Hawat, It's got to be him. I want him brought to me immediately. And we get the buts immediately. And it has to be Hawat, she thought. Suspicions such as this could come from no other source without being discarded immediately. So if this came from anywhere else, Hawat would have quashed it. Basically, that's what she's saying. It has to be him. And I've just got a wee thing here, but Idaho just interjects here. Chuck the whole damn thing. And I just put, what's that mean? Is that just drunken babbling? Of course, she looks down at the cup in her hand, abruptly dashes its contents across Idaho's face. Lock him up. So she wings the cup in Idaho's face, lock him up, get him to a guest room in the East Wing, and let him sleep it off. And that's her orders. But the two guards, and here we go, this is what we were talking about. The two guards stared at her unhappily. One ventured, perhaps we should take him somewhere else, milady. We could, this is where she snaps. He's supposed to be here, Jessica snapped. He's a job to do here. Her voice dripped bitterness. And that's, again, this word that we associate with her quite a bit. He's so good at watching the ladies. And this, and that's just real sarcasm dripping there, I think, as well. Basically you have a soldier who's on watch, essentially, who's drunk at his post, which is not a good thing. And especially when there's danger all around. Why is he drunk? As much as he's following this woman, escorting her, maybe trying to get a bit of info. We find out it's maybe that the spice beer is a bit potent. And you think they might have had a report on that before going out to drink it, I suppose. Watch out for the local booze, if you know what I mean. That's the thing they warn people about over here. Watch out for the local drink. Be careful. So good at watching the ladies. The guards swallowed. Do we know where the Duke is? He's at the command post. Is Hawat with him? No, Hawat's in the city, my lady. You will bring... So getting information from these guys is one thing. You will bring him to me at once, Jessica said. I will be in my sitting room when he arrives. But, my lady, not yes, ma'am. But this is the second time in a row. But, my lady, if necessary, I will call the Duke, she said. I hope it will not be necessary. I would not want to disturb him with this. Yes, my lady. So off they go and do exactly what she says as soon as she evokes the Duke's name. And again, we have to wonder how much is this to do with what's going on with the suspicion about her. This surely can't be normal for Jessica. How could she be the secretary of the Duke's household and run it in any shape or form if people won't do what she asks them to? And so it is. We talked about this sense of misogyny, and I honestly don't know if I suspect that that's really part of just the suspicion on Jessica. I don't think it's an additional thing on top. I think if she was giving out orders, etc., we see a bit of that earlier on, actually, don't we? That people pretty much do, yes, my lady, this kind of thing. So she hands her cups to Mapes, who deals with basically Mapes and Yuri and gets them out of the way. You can go back to bed, Mapes. Mapes is pretty much, are you sure? And Jessica is, I'm sure. And I like this little touch here. It's, where are we? You may return to bed, Mapes. You're sure you'll not need me? Jessica smiled grimly. I'm sure. Pardon me. And I just think that's a wee interaction between the two women. Drunken man, do you need any hand with this one? No, I'll be fine. No problem. If you see what I mean. Yui, again, perhaps maybe you could deal with this tomorrow. I could give you a sedative, some drugs. And again, how she deals with Mapes there. Mapes is matter of fact, and she deals with Mapes in a matter of fact way that Mapes respects. You can go back to bed, sure. Yeah, fine, no worries. You a bit more maybe tomorrow, maybe a sedative, some drugs. No, go back to your quarters. I'll handle this my way. And again, I suppose what we're told is that she puts his hand on his arm to take the sting out of the command, and assures him that this is the only way, which is an absolute, I suppose. We like to point them out. Takes the sting out of the command. What's the problem with following orders from a woman if it's her household and you're in her employ? Is it just the fact that she's being abrupt? I don't know. But what we have here is essentially Jessica sort of having trying to give orders, or on to men basically, and them not really going, okay, you sure? Or, they're not doing it straight away. They're doubting her. They're offering counter suggestions. Maybe we could do this. Maybe we should do this, that, or the other. And I think as we're going along, certainly, in fact, this is actually really good because we started off reading tonight Cynthia's letter, which covered a number of these points. And what we are seeing is an absolute act of, I suppose, misogyny within the Dune universe. And we're going to see, and we've already seen some of the Duke's attitudes towards women, Hawat's attitudes towards women seem to be very much aligned. But we're going to see this, and even to a degree, I think, how the Bene Gesserit wish themselves to be seen. But we're going to see a real hint of the power of women in the Dune universe. Excuse me, sorry, I got a very tickly nose. And I suppose that we're going to get the answer to the question is, if they have so much power, why don't they do something about it? And I suppose, which is going to be an interesting question to look at. So at this point, Jessica leaves, and we're going to head down to her sitting room to set up for the confrontation between her and Thufir Hawat. How she leaves here, I think, is quite powerful, abrupt. Is the only way, and I'm off, right? I'm not waiting around for you to talk more nonsense or anything like this. Head high. She turned and stalked off through the house to her rooms. Not walked, stalked. Stalking like a huntress, possibly. Cold walls, passages, a familiar door. She jerked the door open, strode in, and slammed it behind her. And we've mentioned about how people go in and out of rooms within Dune, etc. This kind of thing. And here's a proper door slam from Jessica. The anger's real. And I suppose such things, door slamming is either maybe for your own benefit, but it's usually a bit of an advertisement, isn't it? It's to make noise for other people's benefit. And I suppose it shows a little bit that some of this has gotten to her. There's a little bit of a lack of control. So Jessica's suspicions. Let's see. She stood there glaring at the shield-blanked windows of her sitting room. Hawat. Could he be the one the Harkonnens bought? We shall see. So the next bit's great, I think. Nice little bit of writing here from Frank. And we basically have Jessica set up the room for us and for this confrontation. And essentially what we're going to see is, I've called it aristeia. I'll explain that in a wee second. But essentially what we have here is a kind of a duel between Jessica and Thufir. And so she sets up the room both for the confrontation and for the reader. Gives us a bit of description. And here we go. Jessica, in fact, let's just read this actually. It's a good wee paragraph. Jessica crossed to the deep, old-fashioned armchair with an embroidered cover of schlag skin, moved the chair into position to command the door. She was suddenly very conscious of the crysknife in its sheath on her leg. She removed the sheath and strapped it to her arm, tested the drop of it. Once more, she glanced around the room, placing everything precisely in her mind against any emergency. The chaise near the corner, the straight chairs along the wall, the two low tables, her stand-mounted zither beside the door to her bedroom. Pale rose light glowed from the dispenser lamps. She dimmed them, sat down in the armchair, patting the upholstery, appreciating the chair's regal heaviness. for this occasion. Mm. There's something of a there is something of a as Hawat is coming towards this room. I suppose whenever he's coming in here, this whole thing is a trap. This room is a trap for Hawat. And she's basically is going to find out what she needs to know by hook or by crook. And so she sets up the room. This chair, I think, is very, very interesting. It's almost, there's been a couple of nice pieces of art, actually, I'm not too sure of the artist. Someone did a really good picture, all reds of, I think one of the heads of the honored maitres in like a big, long throne. And I kind of got that sense of power sitting in this seat, waiting like I suppose a spider in the web almost for Thufir to come. But she's going to command this room, how she sets it up, and is aware of everything in there, has a sense of her own environment, and is ready to defend herself should it come to any violence. I just noticed also that she's got a stand-mounted zither. So Jessica's a bit musical. There we go, in the bedroom. Although that's quite good. I think the balisette is meant to be. Isn't the balisette meant to be a type of zither? Excuse me. So it's something similar. This is a stand-mounted one. This is these like your old kithras, aren't they? Let me see. Balisette. Oh yeah, there we go. So a balisette is a 9-stringed musical instrument, lineal descendant of the zithra, tuned to the Chuseok scale and played by strumming, favorite instrument of imperial troubadours. So there you go. So we have a zither, and in the Dune universe it's a zithra, which is based on the Greek kithra. There you go. Always interested in my stringed instruments. Love them. So there we go. And the suspense lights, the ambience of the room. We've got this pale rose light. And I thought that went with we were told earlier, the broken stems of meaning, this kind of flowers, roses, these kind of imagery, and just this chair, this schlag chair. So just a wee bit of a comment. Schlag appears in the dictionary of the terminology of the Imperium. This armchair that she's sitting in, just sort of feeling the upholstery, has a cover of schlag skin. So we're told that the schlag is an animal native to Tupa. It's hunted almost to extinction and has a thin, tough hide. There we go. So we were having a wee bit of a chat earlier. I think Babs mentioned, there it is, as for escape from Dune requiring smugglers, I thought House Atomics required the guild to provide Freifeldt houses, anonymous passages to the safe place, Tupa. So, yeah, I think the House Atomics is kind of, I think atomics are used in the Dune universe in very much the same kind of way that they are, hopefully, today, that it's the potential threat of their use. Whoops. And that each house has its own House Atomics, that at the end of the day, if you're going to try and wipe somebody out, they can always use their nukes against you. So I think the atomics is a kind of, I suppose, just like a mutually assured destruction type thing. But I think it's the guild that do it. I think it's just in this case the smugglers would have ships to get the Atreides from Arrakis up to a ship that can get them to Tupa. I think that would be in the light of if something happens to the Atreides frigates, because they do have their own ships. So Duncan's clear accusation that Jessica is a spy suggests that Thufir told Duncan that he was a spy and not that he's to watch her because she's under suspicion. Yeah, sorry, I read that previously there, Cynthia. Sorry, my text reads the same as yours. Kevin Wolf Keith Kolb agreed, but we untrained can spot the difference in all but the best performances. Is it something like actors check? We played many a gig, I suppose, as a musician. I'm very good at spotting bands make mistakes if they're playing live, but I'm also aware that in my own band, making mistakes is kind of part of what you do on stage. And as long as you cover it up and don't react, nobody really notices sometimes, It's one of those things. So the regal heaviness is that phrase there that I think works with this chair. There's something powerful about this. almost like a throne, um, appreciating the chair's regal heaviness. She appreciates it for this occasion. And that's what she's going to do. She's going to get regal heavy on Thufir. Now let him come. We shall see what we shall see. And I think this is another very interesting comment here, again, in terms of what we're talking about people coming up with preconceptions. I think this is her not prejudging the situation. We shall see what we shall see. That whatever will happen will happen. And she prepares herself. Again, we're told in the Bene Gesserit way, and we get to learn a little bit more about that, accumulating patience and saving her strength. So Hawat arrives sooner than expected, and as he comes in, we knock and he comes in, and she watches him. And we get let me just check this about my handwriting. Sometimes is a bit rubbish. Yeah, it's seeing the crackling sense of drug-induced energy, crackling in his movements, and then seeing the fatigue beneath. And again, that's a bit reminiscent of Leto, isn't it? It seems that half the House Atreides is walking about on drugs just to keep them going. So yes, the crackling sense of drug-induced energy in his movements, the fatigue beneath, how its rheumy old eyes glittered, his leathery skin appeared faintly yellow in the room's light, and there was a wide wet stain on the sleeve of his knife arm. And I made a wee sort of note here. Excuse me. Oh, before we go on, she smelled, very importantly, this one, she smelled blood there. So he's come from whatever he's been up to and hasn't even really bothered to clean up. And she says, bring the chair and sit facing me, gives him an order that he agrees to. Now, the only one thing I wanted to point out there, I just thought interesting contrast, but well, a comparison maybe, the leathery skin of the schlag skin of the chair compared to Thufir's leathery skin, yellow in the light. You almost get a sense that, I did anyway, that it's possible that Thufir could come out of this with Jessica wearing his skin on another chair. That's maybe me just going a bit dark. It's nice to fancy about these things, isn't it, though? Hawat's thoughts, though. Here we go. And again, probably just reinforcing the Drunken is indeed drunk. That drunken fool of an Idaho, he thought. He studied Jessica's face, wondering how he could save this situation. So the sense that he wants to salvage something here is there. Shall we clear the air? What troubles you, my lady? Don't be coy. Your spies would have told you. Shall we be honest with each other? So this little setup, shall we cut the nonsense and be truthful here? And there's a sense of, as I said, we get a sense of dueling, a sense of fencing. And I've called this aristeia as well, which I said I would explain a wee bit, didn't I? Aristeia, what would it be? Aristeia, would it be excellence? I think in the sense of Greek. Let me just look it up for you, rather than me giving you a wrong definition. And this is something that's, yes, aristeia is excellence. Now, from the Greek word aristos, which is best. And just very briefly what Wikipedia says, as a scene in the dramatic conventions of epic poetry, such as the Iliad, where a hero in battle has his finest moments, aristeia may result in the death of the hero and therefore suggest a battle in which he reaches his peak as a fighter or hero. So it's a wee bit more... There's a bit more to it than that. I think you would have aristeia in all sorts of things within Greek society. But the ideas of excellence, that if you think we had it was arete, agon, aristeia, competition, if you like, in a sense, but it's about being pitted against an opponent. And often within the Iliad, particularly the Iliad, you'll get a particular hero paired up against another hero, and they go at each other. It doesn't always end in death. By the way, it's one of these things where the excellence of each man is tested, if you see what I mean. And this is it's not necessarily a violent thing, but in this sense, I get the sense of this scene between Jessica and Thufir very much in that sense of aristeia. That here we have, here put up your two top heroes, if you like, and watch them have a go at each other. It's a battle between them in a sense, a battle of wits, and although both Jessica and Thufir, we've been told how much we should admire Thufir, that even the Emperor fears this Mentat's abilities. Thufir is massively outmatched here, badly outmatched by his master's concubine. And it's going to be a bit of a hard revelation, I think. He has some idea of Bene Gesserit abilities, but it's going to come hard to him here. And whenever Jessica talks about when to shock him, I think she's building it up to do it correctly, so that possibly not to give him a heart attack or something, So straight away, Jessica has one question first, and it's a direct question. And this is a trait of certainly Jessica, Paul, the Bene Gesserit. Cut through the nonsense. I want to know something. Are you now a Harkonnen agent? Simply put, no matter how he responds, whether he gives her an affirmative, a negative, tries to just hide, whatever he does will be readable by her. And of course, he's angry. He's half out of the chair. This people getting half up out of chairs like we had the banker the last time. Face dark with fury, demanding, "You dare insult me so?" You have, and oddly enough, just before I got to this bit in what followed next in the book, I just wrote, "That's what a hypocrite." And then, as always, Jessica spells it out for us. Sit down. She might as well go, "You hypocrite! You did this to me. You insulted me." So the logic of this is the weapon, I suppose, that Jessica is using against Thufir here. You insult me. You did it to me. Hypocrite is basically what she's saying there, and the logic of that I've put here is what sinks him back into his chair. Jessica reads the signs well enough for Bene Gesserit, and we get a simple statement: it's not him. What he's done just in that moment, just that, "You dare insult me," that's enough for her to go, it's not him. Bugger. Who is it then, I suppose? So it gives her confirmation, and all she needed was a reaction out of him. Underlying prejudice towards the witches. Yeah. Full-on prejudice towards the witches. And the question with that, Kevin, is how much of it is cultivated by the witches themselves, if you see what I mean. And I think one of the things that Jessica actually states here is a good example. We'll come to it, Kevin, actually in a wee bit. Is an example of where the Bene Gesserit tell a lie, put it out there, and it's not a lie at all. It's absolutely a truth. So not only are their lies meant to be deceptive, and the Bene Tlilax do this as well with the dirty Tlilax do this thing. They're the people responsible for that. The people who go around calling the Tlilaxu the dirty Tlilaxu, the filthy Tlilaxu. It was the Tlilaxu who started those kind of rumors, and I really do get the sense of the same thing with the Bene Gesserit. But it's enough for her to move forward here at this point. It's not you, and so she tries to build a bridge, I suppose, here. But there's a barrier to this. It isn't Hawat. "Now I know you remain loyal to my duke," she said. "I am prepared, therefore, to forgive your affront to me." And here we go. And this is I've put kind of a stupid statement here. Is there something to forgive? In other words, I've done nothing wrong. And actually, this is the point where the conversation kind of starts with, shall we be honest with each other? And this isn't being open. This isn't being honest. It's being deceptive. And essentially, all Thufir would have to do here to assuage Jessica's fears would be go, "Yeah, I'm very sorry. You're quite correct. Shouldn't have done it." And actually kept up the illusion. But whether she could read that or not, I don't know. And I think how it operates within Jessica's sphere of influence, as Kevin saying that there's an underlying prejudice towards the witches. He has some sense of their abilities and is probably fearful of them. In that sense, I think his fears are justified. But is there something to forgive? This is him playing word games. And this is a very interesting bit here. Jessica scowled, wondering, shall I play my trump? That sounds wrong, doesn't it, in this day and age? Shall I tell him of the Duke's daughter? Shall I tell him of the Duke's daughter I've carried within me these few weeks? No. Leto himself doesn't know. This would only complicate his life, divert him in a time when he must concentrate on our survival. There is yet time to use this. Pardon me. So the fact that she's with child, is going to have a baby, and should I use this as a trump card, top trumps, as a part of my arsenal to fight against this man? And she decides not to, because Leto doesn't know. Why tell Thufir, I suppose, which is good, I suppose. It's a bit it's a bit of a funny one, really, isn't it? But the fact that, yes, I'm pregnant, she's happy to use that as a weapon, to weaponize her pregnancy against Thufir, but she's not going to. And the wee comment is there's time enough yet to use this. So there's strategy going on between these two. And again, I suppose that the problem is that Jessica is not a fully trained truthsayer, and they could solve all of this with a truthsayer, but there's no truthsayer around, qualified by the High Board, we're told. And again, as you say, no truthsayer. Now, the High Board, that was one of the ones that I was having a wee nosy at earlier. Now, we have a High Council, but not a High Board in the back. And we're going to come to the High Council in a minute. So Jessica again asks a direct question: is there a traitor amongst us? And she informs us that I've studied our people. It's not Gurney, certainly not Duncan. It's not you, Thufir. Can't be Paul. It's not me. Last person left is Dr. Yui. And of course, we're told by Hawat that would be an empty gesture. It can't be him. He's conditioned by the High College. So the High College, I'm assuming, is something to do with the Sook School. And I get a sense that the High Board, and we do have an entry for the High Board, I think, is something similar to the High College, but for truthsayers of the Bene Gesserit. The High Council, we're told, oh no, it's not, sorry, I've misread. The High Council, I was thinking, sorry, that's the High College. Totally misread that altogether. Okay, we have two organizations mentioned here then, and we don't have anything on them. Sorry, folks, I misread that one. I thought it said the High Council, which is to do with the Landsrat. This is the first of these is the High Board that we're told about. A truthsayer would solve this, she said, but we have no truthsayer qualified by the High Board. I'm pretty sure that truthsaying is a Bene Gesserit ability. So we must assume that the High Board must have something to do with the Bene Gesserit schools. Now, as of course we're told about Dr. Yui, how it says it was being an empty gesture, he's conditioned by the High College. So that was my wee mistake there, folks. Sorry about that. That I know for certain. So once again, the singular, how it has certainty about something that we're told is just as a guarantee. And I've just made that this is the obvious one unchecked fact, is that Dr. Yui's got a wee black diamond on his head. That's it. He's got a tattoo, and that's the symbol of absolute trustworthiness. So we don't have the High Board or the High College mentioned, but we must assume that there's some kind of graduating authority, if you like, for truthsayers and for Sook doctors, respectively. Jessica goes on with this, not to mention, of course, that his Bene Gesserit wife was slain by Harkonnens. We talked about taking things for facts, and we're really not too sure what the whole situation is with with Dr. Yui's wife, Wana. We talked a wee bit. There's dates for her in the book, and they're kind of question mark. We're not too sure what's happened to her. And of course, we run with the idea that she probably is dead, but there's a small chance that she might not be. How it goes, so that's what happened to her. And I've made a wee question here, folks. Sometimes we do run into things that don't make sense in the Dune universe. Dr. Yui's been employed by Leto Atreides in his house for 6 years, and up to this point, nobody's looked at, nobody's interviewed him, nobody's asked about his personal life, to see if a man, is he a threat? Is he someone who could be bribed, or this kind of thing? Jessica remarks about the hate in his voice whenever he says the Harkonnen's name, and of course, Hawat says that, I don't have the ear. So Jessica wants to know. The conversation seems to be going somewhere. What brought about this base suspicion on me? And again, Hawat's not going to answer. What did we get the first time? You insult me, so she asked him, was he a Harkonnen agent? Is there something to forgive? His first answer was evasive. This time, what's brought this base suspicion on me? He's telling her that she's put him in an impossible position. His first loyalty is to the Duke. She says, well, I'm prepared to forgive much because of such loyalty. And again, he says, that's another prompt for, again, I ask him, is there something to forgive? Hopefully, you'd think that Jessica might put the two things with the Duke, that the Duke Letos must be at the center of this. But whether she gets it or not, I'm not too sure. And the other thing I've mentioned here, again, I ask, is there something to forgive? Yeah. The answer is, of course there is, regardless of what your suspicions are. And I suppose the way Howat's looking at it is, well, if you're not a spy, then I won't apologize to you because I'll have you executed. Otherwise, then I will say I'm sorry. But to treat somebody like that, and he probably is wrong, I think. And the whole idea, pretty much, Leto's certain that he's wrong, that she's not a spy. Just his behavior would suggest, yes, actually, you could show, if I was Jessica, I'd certainly bring him up on his manners, and Jessica goes, so we're at a stalemate. Shrugged. So it's simply that Hawat won't give up. I can't, he's not really going to reveal what the situation is, and he can't, at least in his own mind, he can't. And so we get a change of topic, a diversion. And let us discuss something else for a minute, she said. Duncan Idaho, the admirable fighting man whose abilities at guarding and surveillance are so esteemed. Tonight, he overindulged in something called spy spear. I hear reports that others amongst our people have been stupefied by this concoction. Is that true? And again, how it's got, well, you've got your reports, which means I'm not saying, and you should act on your own intelligence, really. And well, Jessica goes, okay, I do. So I do. I have my own intelligence. And asks him a question. Do you see this drinking as a symptom? And he does not get what she's talking about at all. My lady speaks in riddles, this kind of thing. And so what we get from Jessica, and I'm kind of curious about this a wee bit, is that she starts poking him in the sense of time for you to be a mentat. Be a mentat, Thufir. Run the problem with Duncan and the others. She points out that they've got no home. So we were talking about Duncan's sense of dislocation earlier and his drunkenness. Hawat says Arrakis is their home. That's it's quite a stupid comment to make. It might be their home now, but it's not their home, and it shows really very little insight into I suppose the human condition. These people have all been uprooted. So as much as it's where they're at, it's not necessarily their home. And Jessica spells it out from, but I think it shows him being a wee bit uninsightful. Arrakis is an unknown. Caladan was home, not here. We've uprooted them, and they have no home. And they also, and very importantly, I think this one, they fear the Duke is failing them. And I'm actually pretty much certain that that's her own feelings as well. Now, we get this response from Thufir, which is a kind of a typical military response. Such talk from one of the men would be, and he's interrupted. And before he is interrupted, you have to ask what? What would it be? So I've put, what would it be? Would it be mutinous, treasonous, punishable by death, punishable by firing squad, punishable by whipping, etc., etc.? You don't get to talk like that in the army because you don't get to talk your own way, I suppose. And what we get is an interruption from Jessica here, saying basically, stop that, cut that nonsense out. Let me just read this. Actually, it's a good little. As much as I was going, well, mutinous, treasonous, punishable by, actually, it was defeatist or treacherous was the ones that Jessica comes up with. Let's see. Stop that, Thufir. Is it defeatist or treacherous for a doctor to diagnose a disease correctly? My only intention is to cure the disease. And here we go. The Duke gave me authority over such matters. And we're going, honestly wondering, hopefully, that this isn't what this is all about, that Hawat is just really just bothered about his authority being questioned or undermined. And of course, Jessica, I think, is trying to be very reasonable with him here. You understand that I have a natural concern. I'm involved in this, and I also have abilities that, could be used to help here. She is a massive resource to the House Atreides. And here we go. Here's the second shock. Will I have to shock him severely? She wondered. He needs shaking up. Something to break him from his routine. Which is particularly interesting, I think. It's not, should I give him a shock? If we back up, let's see, to Duncan Idaho. Where are we? Just keep my finger in the place there. This calls for shock treatment. That's what Duncan Idaho gets. He gets shock treatment. And now we're here with Thufir. It becomes, do I have to shock him severely? We're taking the ante up a bit. He needs shaking up. This guy needs it. I think it's quite interesting. It's fun. So this back and forth between the two of them, and it's about, there's a manipulation going on. One trying not to give away anything. One trying to really figure out what on earth is going on here. And now, and I suppose Jessica knows that that Thufir isn't the traitor. So there's the way she's working at him. I suppose she can't convince him in that sense that she's innocent. And I often wonder why, because I think he must have a lot of blinkers on. So will I have to shock him? Not just shock him, severely. He needs shaking up, break him from the routine. How it responds, that there are many interpretations for your concerns, which is just elusive. And so Jessica basically says, well, you've already convicted me then, whatever it is. And how it says, no, of course not. But we can't afford to take any chances. And of course, I've written next to that Yui. We can't afford to take any chances, and I've just written Dr. Yui right next to it. He has taken a chance, and I think he sets himself up rightly here, and sets him up for Jessica as well. And here it comes. I can't afford to take any chances, the situation being what it is. Here we go. This is a kick in the teeth for him. A threat to my son got past you right in this house. She said, who took that chance? His face darkened. I offered my resignation to the Duke. And here's the very good point that Jessica makes. Did you offer your resignation to me or to Paul? No. And this, it gains the right response here, doesn't it? He's openly angry. She's absolutely right, by the way. Where's the apology to them? Betraying it in a quickness of breathing, in dilation of nostrils, a steady stare. She saw a pulse beating at the temple. I'm the Duke's man, he said, biting off the words, biting and growling and etc. with Leto and Thufir. The Duke's man. And I've actually written here that, interesting, so I must highlight these wee bits. I've written here that this is real anger from Thufir, not shame. You know, I would, if someone says, "Well, you were in charge of security for me and my son, you absolutely failed, and they nearly killed us," I wouldn't be getting angry at them. I'd be going, "I'm really sorry. I totally messed this up. I can only apologize." Why get angry at someone that you failed in such an appalling manner, and not really acknowledging them in any sense, And I've actually written down here, just as a wee comment on this, how is Thufir functioning as a mentat at this point? And part of me thinks that that's partly what Jessica is engaged with here. In a sense, is that I think, oh goodness, I forgot to missed a whole pile of pages that I meant to color in there and coded here to help me find my way through things. How is he functioning as a mentor? And is in a sense what Jessica's at here? Is she trying to fix him? So Jessica says there is no traitor, and I've put no. She's got it wrong. There is. She thinks the threat must be something else. What about the lasguns? They could have timing mechanisms that would be aimed at house shields. So this is one of these kind of technological standoffs that features in the Dune universe. Hawat says no. We could tell if an explosion, or who could tell? Sorry, if the explosion wasn't atomic. Now, simply put, it's that doubt that would mean that you can't tell one of these explosions from a nuke, and because of that doubt, that you get the sense throughout the Dune universe that the Landsraad would respond to any such attack as if it was a nuclear strike by another house. So they don't want to do that. Who could tell if the explosion wasn't atomic? No. They'll not risk anything that illegal. Radiation lingers. Evidence would be hard to erase. They'll observe most of the forms. It has to be a traitor. So, Jessica, there is no traitor. Hawat, it has to be a traitor. Hawat's correct here. And Jessica's not, unfortunately. Here we go. We get a bit of, I've written down, this is a psychological attack now on Thufir. And she uses his own words against him. His response to, you haven't apologized to me and my son is, I'm a Duke's man. So you're the Duke's man, she sneered. Would you destroy him in the effort to save him? And he takes a deep breath. If you're innocent, you'll have my most abject apologies. And I've made a wee note here, by the way. I don't know for anybody who's familiar with the book, but I've just written an awful lot of a lot of the Atreides household at this point. I have just written here an awful lot of Titus Grown here. This kind of interactions between the household. What we refer to sometimes as the psychotic family novel. For anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, in terms of our fantastical literature, Dune is considered the pinnacle of science fiction. Lord of the Rings is the peak. Was it they called the Twin Peaks of science fiction fantasy? But there is I suppose more within the Gothic fantasy. There's a third series of books that's highly respected. It's Mervyn Peake's Gormenghast trilogy, and the first book of which is called Titus Grown, and I just see a lot of this the similarities to it. It's a great book if anybody ever gets a chance to have a look at it. It's exceptionally well written, and arguably it falls into this bit of science fiction at one point. I think it's one of those tricky books, but as I don't know what you would call it these days. Probably I'd go more like a Gothic a gothic fantasy stroke science fiction kind of thing, But I've just made a wee note that this kind of interactions between members of this household, the level of threat that they present to each other, their interconnectedness, all of this kind of things, all of these kind of things, and the stagnation of the ancient house, all of that just reminds me an awful lot of Titus Groom, and is a book that precedes Dune by a good few years and is quite well known. Certainly, I'd say within of a certain time, fantasy and science fiction writers should know the Gormenghast trilogy if you're into your stuff. But as it wouldn't be out of a place if you put them on a bookshelf. I'd say you could put your Lord of the Rings, your Dune series, and the Gormenghast trilogy very nicely on a shelf together, and they would complement each other very, very well. So humans live best, Jessica says, when each person has their place, knows where they belong. Destroy the place, you can destroy the person. You and I are the people that the Duke loves the most, and therefore we're ideally suited to destroy the other's place. And we get this sort of demonstration, I suppose, of what I might be able to do from Jessica. Could I not whisper suspicions to Leto one night, as he's sleeping? When would he be most susceptible to my influence? Must I spell it out for you? Pretty much is what she's saying here. Must I draw it for you more clearly? And it's a statement of power from Jessica here. And how it takes it as such. You threaten me, he growled. And again, no, indeed not. No, I'm merely pointing out to you that someone is attacking us through the basic arrangement of our lives. It's clever, diabolical. I propose to negate this attack by so ordering our lives that there'll be no chinks for such barbs to enter. So I think very interesting, this little speech here. What we're actually being told is that the Harkonnen plot is clever, and that the Harkonnen plot is diabolical, and of course by proxy the Emperor as well, who we don't really mention too much in relation to plots and so on. But it's someone out there is poking at us through the arrangements of our lives, and I've called that systems, routines, interactions, correspondences, and codependencies. It's simply how they interact. And if that's, as Jessica points out, that's how they're going after us. Clever, very diabolical, very. Then we keep talking about how much the Harkonnens have how much everybody seems to underestimate the Harkonnens, and that their name is used as a Harkonnen scum, that they're idiots, that they're filth, that they're stupid. And you kind of, I'm starting to wonder, is that the Harkonnens who've put this out as well? Because the one thing that they do not come across, and never have in this book, as far as I was concerned, as stupid. They're a more than worthy opponent, if you like, for the Atreides. In fact, they pretty much do them in. But they're not someone to be. They're not a group of people to be taken lightly, I suppose. And everything that I think that Leto Atreides does in terms of taking the Harkonnen lightly, if we go back to our very start of our chapter, what's our epigraph all about? There is no escape. We pay for the violence of our ancestors. This is all because of some brouhaha that a couple of guys had, hundreds of years ago. Jessica's only recently discovered the fact about Yui herself. She didn't hear the hate in his voice previously, I guess. Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's another good point. Cynthia, has nobody heard the word Harkonnen out of Yui's mouth in all of these 6 years? Kevin says he still sees her as a witch concubine, not highborn, not to be trusted. I agree. No long O in Harkonnen. There's an umlaut on the real word, Kevin, but I've been pronouncing it that long that way, so I go with Harkonnen. But it's I'm from Northern Ireland, so it's simply how I pronounce my vowels. So yeah, I've tried some of them out, but it's Harkonnen. O. It's O with an umlaut, isn't it? The actual name. But yeah, so yeah, pronunciations, as I like to point out, Kevin, is all to do with the shape of our mouths, and there's loads and loads of things to it. But I keep saying I recently got I had 5 wisdom teeth, and I recently got 4 of them removed, and it's actually changed how I talk. And I've developed a little bit of extra sibilance because of it. And partly my coughing. I don't know if you notice when I cough, I actually take a big intake of air in. It's like I get wee air pockets at the back of my throat, and they tickle like hell. So it's one of those things. That was Lynch who's about. I agree. I love Lynch. Yeah, but yeah, no. The Harkonnen thing. If you look way into it, I tend to looked at the original Finnish spelling, and I tend to take the umlauts as quite hard. But yeah, it's potato. Yeah, Harkonnen. See that wouldn't be a Harkonnen. That's trust me, Kevin. It's a Northern Irish thing. Dear, oh dear. You should. There's a bunch of words that we say here that are very funny in terms of pronunciation compared to a native English speaker. If you see what I mean. And I think what is it they say about a lot of people who learn English as a foreign language, their preference over here is for Irish and Scottish nationals, Irish and Scots, because of the way we pronounce our vowels. But we've got all sorts of funny ones here, so it's a bit of a localized thing, Kevin. But yeah, it's all good fun anyway. And I have to say, I love the David Lynch version of the film. I'm a big fan of it. I'm still pushing. Maybe I'll write a musical version. I keep thinking that David Lynch's Dune should be turned into a musical a la Rocky Horror. I think it's got mutual potential for that. So there we go. So yeah, the proposal from Jessica here is to negate this attack by kind of taking, I suppose, the overlapping spheres of influence that her as House Secretary, that Thufir has as Master of Assassins. It's where they're clashing, where their authorities are bouncing off each other, where these chinks are appearing, I suppose, so that there'll be no chinks for such barbs to enter. So she's really proposing sort of the two of them working together. And what Hawat gets from this is you accuse me of whispering baseless suspicions. Baseless, yes. You meet this with your own whispers. And your life is compounded of whispers, not mine. We've got that word whispers and whispering in there a good few times. Euphemism, isn't it? Jessica doesn't answer here. Thufir's being done enough of that. He says, you'd meet this with your own whispers. She doesn't say yes or no, and instead says, your life is compounded of whispers, not mine, Thufir. Then you question my abilities. And I think we've all been questioning Thufir's abilities. And I've actually written, God, I hope so, just next to it. It's one of those things that if she doesn't, and of course she sighed, and I've written, yes, she is questioning his abilities. So here we go. 53. I want you to examine your own emotional involvement in this. Okay. And this is quite an interesting little speech. Examine your own emotional involvement. The natural humans and animal without logic. Disagree on that. Projection of logic. Your projection of logic onto all affairs is unnatural, but suffered to continue for its usefulness. I think that's a fantastic statement there. The emphasis there, first of all, projection of logic onto all things unnatural, and then suffered to continue for its usefulness. As if we let you live because you're useful. It's pretty much what that statement is saying, and that what you do is unnatural. What does that mean? Threat, and is it a Bene Gesserit threat? In that sense, you're the embodiment of logic. I meant that. And again, she's trying to butter him up a little bit here. And here's that word we've talked about. We get it's either yet or but, isn't it? Yet. Your solutions to your problems are concepts that are projected outside yourself, and they're to be studied and rolled around, examined from all sides. Now, I think that this is very interesting in terms of what we were told in the previous chapter. And this is to do with, sorry, just to elaborate, this is to do with what Kynes was saying about laboratory conditions in the previous chapter, to do with the Tansley effect, etc. And the idea of that, the laboratory evidence isn't the real world, and that also that comes from this idea of general semantics. That the famous thing in general semantics is that the quote is that the map is not the territory. Yeah. Yeah, duh. Okay. So I've just put that this is something similar in terms to the problem of the laboratory evidence and how people look at Arrakis. This is a similar identification of the problem of a mentat, and that your solutions to your problems and concepts are projected outside of yourself, and they're to be studied and rolled around, examined from all sides. And this is really important, I think, because hang on, I'm going to put a big. This is hang on, big star there. It's to do with what's wrong with the Bene Gesserit themselves. This flaw that we're told to do with the scientists on Arrakis, now to do with, in a sense, the mentats. And I suppose this is my favorite piece of Dune that I like pointing out to everybody. This is on 553 of this edition. Here we go. The obvious conclusion was that someone of a higher order powers was taking control of the spice source, yet the Bene Gesserit missed this point entirely. In the face of these facts, one has led to the inescapable conclusion that the inefficient Bene Gesserit behavior in this affair was a product of an even higher plan of which they were completely unaware. And it's that bit, and it's also tied in. It was tied in with the fact that the Bene Gesserit were unaware of how their own actions change things. So whether it's a kind of spurious link or not, I just thought it was a similar kind of thing to what we're told about why the Bene Gesserit fail in the Arrakeen problem, what the Mentats problem is here, that it's projected outside of yourself, that, again, the laboratory evidence, you need to step outside into the real world, and that the Bene Gesserit, even whenever looking at their whole Kwisatz Haderach program, had forgotten to consider their own role in it and how it would change them. If you see what I mean. So, I think it's an interesting thing. And of course, it seems like quite an intelligent thing to say, really, to Hawat. It's, he responds kind of belligerently. You think how to teach me my trade? He asked. Did not try to hide the disdain in his voice. Doesn't even bother. So obvious this and she hang on a second. Anything outside yourself, this you can see and apply your logic to it. But it's a human trait that we encounter personal problems, and these are the most difficult for us to bring out in order for us to let our logic scan them. So we flounder around. We blame anything but the actual deep-seated thing, the thing that's gnawing away at us, that's chewing on us. So I've written here, Jessica's trying to get his mental impairment removed at this point. Is she trying to get him functioning properly? To see what he cannot see. And again, he sees it as an attack. This is an attempt to undermine my faith in my abilities. It's deliberate. And he's rasping at this point. He's really... and as we pointed out, it must be really easy to undermine a mentat. All he needs a bit of, just go up and mess with them a bit. And, a bit of psychological abuse, and they're done. They seem very fragile. Where Or I find one of your people and I find one of our people sabotaging a weapon the way you're sabotaging me, I would not hesitate to denounce them and to destroy them. And I thought that's another wee point. Interesting. Does Hawat, does he look at himself as a weapon, um, as a machine, and as someone who's arguably already um, part machine in a sense of in the terms of what a mentat is, lines up with what Samuel Butler said about man is a to quote him, man is a machinate animal. So yeah, if I caught somebody from our household messing with one of our weapons the way you're messing with me, I would have you denounced and destroyed. Um, again, she's trying to be reasonable with him. I think I don't know whether it's reason why it's not working. The finest mentats have a healthy respect for the error factor in their computations. Howard says, I've never said otherwise. Then then basically be a mentat. Apply yourself to these symptoms. We've both seen them. Drunkenness amongst the men. Here they are. Quarrels. They gossip and exchange wild rumors about Arrakis. They ignore the most simple. Idleness no more. Don't divert my attention from this. That you're making a simple matter something more mysterious. Again, he thinks this is part of her trying to mess with him. He stared at. Let me see. Just I found this wee bit. Sorry, folks. There we are. Bring this book over a wee bit. She stared at him, thinking of the Duke's men rubbing their woes together in the barracks until you could almost smell the charge there, like burnt insulation. And here we go. This is something quite interesting. They're becoming like the men of a pre-guild legend, and the pre-guild legend is of the lost star searcher Ampolorus. Sorry. Let's just read this, what it says here. She stared at him, thinking of the Duke's men rubbing their woes together in the barracks until you could almost smell the charge there, like burnt insulation. They're becoming like the men of the pre-guild legend, she thought, like the men of the lost star searcher Ampoliros, sick at their guns, forever seeking, forever prepared, and forever unready. So, Amporos, if that's how we pronounce it. I've had a wee nosy. I don't know if anybody else has found this. I can't. It sounds like a Greek name. It sounds a bit like Apollodorus or Amphilos or something like that, or a hybrid word. But I couldn't find anything in particular on it. What we're told is in the back of the book, in the Dictionary of the Imperium, that this is the legendary, is it Flying Dutchman of Space? Here we go. Ampolleros, the legendary Flying Dutchman of Space. So that takes us over to that. I suppose that's quite a modern nautical myth, isn't it? What have we got? The Flying Dutchman, Captain Van der Decken, isn't it? And his crew fated to travel the seas forever until Judgment Day. Something to do with is it swearing that to get around Cape of Good Hope, I think, something like that. Goodness, I haven't looked at that in a long time. Let me just catch up with your. I'm just very good, Joseph. That's what I'm talking about. I'm just a sweet Sadiko warrior from sweet Sarusa Sakanda. Oh, I've got you started, guys. Absolutely. I'm a bashful Bashargola from Gamu. Nice to meet you lot. There's a common theme throughout the series. Also, it was just that, the David Lynch version of Dune is so eminently quotable. And everybody's got their moment on screen, and I think everybody could have a routine. I just think it could even be manipulated, I think, with a bit of editing. No need to make a new thing. Oh, excuse me. So we have this little myth here, Ampolleros, the Flying Dutchman, I suppose in terms of what does this mean within the Dune universe? What I did for you folks is I couldn't find much on it, but guess what? It is in the Dune Encyclopedia. Let's have a look, shall we? It's got reasonably lengthy entry in the Dune Encyclopedia. Porous. Let me have a wee look. And I'll not go into it all actually, but let's see. There we go. Porous, the legend of a pre-Gil legend appearing on many planets, including Arrakis, Cronin, Renal, Ekaz, Caladan, Bela Tejas, Gidi Prime, Gamont, and all the planets of Naushi. It tells the story of the Star Searcher's spacecraft Ampolorus, in reality a limited-range interplanetary cruiser of Class 3 power amplitude 7. Blah, blah, blah. Here we go. The one thing that I think is useful here within the Dune, it's got a reasonably good section on it. Over into another page there, a good couple of columns. I think the important thing from the point of view of the story, and I would run really with more of the legend. I'd go with more of the Flying Dutchman. The Flying Dutchman is the clue that Herbert gives us here. But in the sense of what does this story mean to what's happening with the Atreides soldiers, it's that the Duke's men in the barracks are rubbing their woes together, almost smell the charge down there like burnt insulation. They're becoming like the men of this pre-Gil legend. So it's meant to be a ship that's I think basically rigged for war, and that I think that they travel at pretty much. The Ampulus has never found. It's said to be still searching the stars, ever ready to attack. The time dilation effect of near light speed travel, making the crew almost immortal. Now it says here, this is just the way entry in the book, and I think this is an interesting one. It makes kind of sense. The legend is often used to explain to children how allowing themselves to be carried away by imaginary fears could lead to real difficulties. It was also used to suggest to adults that too much idle time was destructive to a well-tuned army or skilled workforce. Forever prepared and forever unready was often a phrase used to deride the crew of the Ampolorus and the state of any tactical force that has waited too long to be tested in the real fight. So there we go. In terms of that sense of this little story here, very quickly makes it wonder about it. There's an entry about it in the terminology of the Imperium. Simply put, imaginary fears that's kind of the thing. And but it also, running with the Flying Dutchman, I suppose, gives a sense of doom. And the other thing I put here is that these little things like this in the Dune universe give it a sense of verisimilitude. It's another story or part of a book or part of a literary tradition or a history or a hagiography that deals with the deep past of this universe and therefore gives it a bit of reality. So on we go, and it's just interesting, but not really expanded on too much. We'll have to see if we can find out a bit more. So why have you not made use of my talents then? And this is a good question from Jessica. Do you fear a rival for your position? Is it rival? Do you feel threatened? Are you afraid of me? Again, he doesn't really like this kind of stuff. Glared eyes blazing. And we're told that Hawat says that I know something of your training, Bene Gesserit. Go on, say it. Bene Gesserit witches. There we go. And again, that's he doesn't say it. That's Jessica. Go on, say it. Bene Gesserit witches. He doesn't actually say it to her face here. I knew something of the real training they give you. I've seen it come out in Paul. I'm not fooled by what your schools tell the public. You exist only to serve. Yes, indeed. Shock number 3 coming up. Must be severe. He's almost ready for it. Dear, oh dear. The shock must be severe, and he's almost ready for it, she thought. You listen respectfully to me in counsel, yet you seldom heed my advice. Why? I don't trust your Bene Gesserit motives. You may think you can look through a man. You may think you can make a man do exactly what you... And then she interrupts. You poor fool, Thufir. She raged, angry. He scowls, pushbacks the chair, but get this calm thing. Whatever rumors you've heard, this is Jessica really starting to work on him. The truth is far greater. A little bit of hyperbole. If I wished to destroy you, Duke, anyone, Leto, and it doesn't matter, you could not have stopped me. And yeah, it is a little interesting response there. I don't trust the Bene Gesserit motives. You may think that you can look through a man, that you may think you can make a man do certain things. Seems that they can. Excuse me. And it's a little sort of flexing of muscles here by Jessica. Again, why she wonders why she's doing it. It is a little bit hyperbolic. She doesn't have to reveal that we've got all these powers, and generally, what we get from the Bene Gesserit is that they don't like revealing that they have these powers. Why do I let pride drive such words out of me? This is not the way I was trained. This is not how I must shock him. And I shouldn't have done that, but she's done it anyway. And I've got, why mustn't she shock him like this? And I put, why? Is it too much? And then I've written, well, it's too late because she's just done it. So we get some more of Thufir Hawat's thoughts. A hand slipped beneath his tunic where he kept a tiny projector of poison darts. I mean, he is sitting right in front of her, by the way, if we remember how the room is set up. She wears no shield, he thought. Is this just a brag she makes? I could slay her now, but the consequences if I'm wrong. I've written, she has no shield. Yes. Is it just a brag? No. I could slay her now. No. Consequences if I'm wrong. Yes. Very bad. I've answered all his questions for him there. And just, putting his hand into his chin. I mean, they are right. I just put his gesture must be obvious to Jessica and the reader. Jessica saw, she sees the gesture towards the pocket. Let us pray violence shall never be necessary between us. Again, a sort of subtle threat. And he responds a worthy prayer. And Jessica returns to this, back to the question that she diverted from, and back with this kind of sickness metaphor. Sickness spreads amongst us. Meanwhile, the sickness spreads amongst us, she said. I must ask you again, isn't it more reasonable to suppose the Harkonnens have planted this suspicion to pit the two of us against each other? And the question doesn't get an answer because this is and it is a reasonable suspicion, but we've returned to the stalemate. He's not budging from this. And again, Jessica sighed, thinking he's almost ready for it. I quite like the build-up of this tension in it, especially if you're reading this for the first time, kind of wondering what the heck is she about to do to this guy? And, what do we mean by a shock? Is it going to be harsh language? And in this case, probably literally more harsher language than you'd imagine. The Duke and I are father and mother's surrogates to our people, she said. The position. Now, this is something we'd heard in the previous chapter, isn't it? This is how the Atreides look at themselves to the people, and it's propaganda. And of course, he jumps in on this because he must be well aware of that. He hasn't married you. You're not married to him. And we're just, I've put top trumps again here next to this. Her talking about the baby being a trump card, and I thought he just played his there. You're not his wife. You're not an Atreides. You're not married to Leto. There you go. And it obviously angers her quite a bit. Forced herself to calmness, thinking, a good riposte that. So there's respect, I think, definitely to a degree, for Thufir from Jessica, but I'm going to question that by the time we get to the end of chapter. Did she have any respect for him whatsoever? Um, she informs him pretty much, force the count. Good riposte that, but here we go. He won't marry anyone else. Not as long as I live. We are surrogates. Um, hmm. And to break up this natural order in our affairs, to disturb, disrupt, and confuse us, which target offers itself most enticingly to the Harkonnens? So, in relation to all of these, and we have that natural order about what we're talking about, the Atreides household relationships, the relationships of their lives. Which target would entice the Harkonnens the most? How it gets where she's going with this, his brows have a lingering scowl. We get a little run through it, don't we? The Duke, too well guarded, though he's the ultimate target, isn't he? Paul suggests it is better guarded than Leto. Jessica herself, I'm a tempting target, but everyone knows the Bene Gesserit are difficult targets. Who would be a better target, she says? One whose duties create, by the necessity of that profession, blind spots. And I like this here. Here we go. Hang on. Let me just find this. The Duke, attractive target, yes. But no one, with the possible exception of Paul, is better guarded. Me? I tempt them surely, but they must know the Bene Gesserit make difficult targets. And there's a better target, one whose duties create, necessarily, a monstrous blind spot. Not like a little gap or in the shield or a chink, is it in the armor that were described earlier, but a monstrous blind spot, a really big one. One to whom suspicion is as natural as breathing, one who builds his entire life on innuendo and mystery. She darted her right hand towards him. You! And again, how it started to leap from his chair. All these people who start getting up and down from these chairs when they're angry. I have not dismissed you, Thufir. She flared. That's that anger flaring out again. Now, here we go. The old mentat almost fell back into the chair. So quickly did his muscles betray him. She smiled without mirth. And here we go. Something's just been done to old Thufir. Now you know something of the real training they give us, she said. Hawat tried to swallow in a dry throat. Her command had been regal, peremptory, uttered in a tone and manner he had found completely irresistible. His body had obeyed her before he could think about it. Nothing could have prevented his response, not logic, not passionate anger, nothing. To do what she had done spoke of a sensitive, intimate knowledge of the person thus commanded, a depth of control he had not deemed possible. Excuse me. Very interesting. He's tried to swallow, dry throat. The command had been regal, peremptory. Peremptory is a good word. An insistence on obedience, if you like, obedience. The tone and manner of it, the completely irresistible. And of course, we know that this is the voice, don't we? His body obeyed her before he could even think about it. Nothing could prevent his response, not logic, not passionate anger, nothing. And the realization of this, to do what she had done. Wow. All with I have not dismissed you, Thufir. It's stunning to him, isn't it? And if we think about it, nothing could have prevented his response, not logic. To do what she had done spoke of a sensitive, intimate knowledge of the person that thus commanded, a depth of control he had not dreamed of possible. This is Jessica's shock. This is what was coming. And of course it is. This is the voice. And we get a fair little bit about it in there. We hear a wee bit about it earlier, of course, tones and shadings, etc. It's completely irresistible. He can't do a thing about it. He has no control whatsoever. This is not a good situation to be in. And we get, I love Jessica in this chapter. Just this is the end. We've got a lot of sort of setting this up, really, just for this moment of realization and power, realization for Thufir, a moment of power and of restrained power, I think, by Jessica. Another layer of rich tapestry. Yeah, Kevin said that's a common theme throughout the series. Another layer of rich tapestries. Yeah, oh, absolutely. The whole Herbert's on record as this whole interweaving of the themes. And I think he says it's like a rich tapestry, and that Herbert wanted it to be extremely difficult to attempt to untangle any one of them from the others. It's a good point, Kevin. Cynthia says, interesting that Jessica uses the image of a doctor diagnosing a disease. She is playing the role of Yui. One might say, yes. Both have misread the real doctor, but are willing to play it big. That's an excellent point, Cynthia. That's it's kind of one of the fun things that I quite enjoy doing is whenever there are questions here, I kind of write the answers down to them. She has a shield. Is it a brag? No. I can slay her now. No consequences if I'm wrong. Yeah, it's kind of one of the fun things I enjoy doing when we're going through this. Yeah. And of course we share that. It's I suppose within this book club it's become a kind of a funny thing, hasn't it? But it's there's a real sense of dramatic irony within the book itself. I know we're having a bit of fun with it, but it all seems sometimes very obvious to us. But yes, indeed, playing doctor, the whole metaphor of this disease, and again, she sort of jumps away from it and comes back to it, doesn't it? It's how the sickness spreads amongst us, and again, that's the point where she goes, "I ask you again," and he won't let her through. No, he's just basically blocking, and as it stalemate is the word that we get here, and she's about to. This is kind of it was stalemate up to a point, and she just basically just trounces all over him here. What we get from Jessica here is a real sense of her power, and it's followed by a sense of her humanity, I suppose, as well. Here we go. I have said to you before that we should understand each other, she said. I meant you should understand me. I already understand you. And I tell you now that your loyalty to the Duke is all that guarantees your safety with me. That's extremely threatening. And you can picture her, this elegant, regal woman. Here's this little master of assassins here with his bloodied knife and smell of blood on him, and he's sitting in this chair and can do nothing. And she's there in her regal, this animal skinned chair, just sitting there with absolute control. And the reality of I suppose, the falsity of the relationship. I don't need to understand you. I understand you perfectly. And that knowledge of that to Thufir is he absolutely knows this, because that sense that he has for her to do this to me takes sensitive, intimate knowledge of the person itself, a depth of control he had not dreamed possible. And I suppose it makes us wonder, do you get more control with the voice over someone who you know very well as opposed to someone who's a stranger? I suppose that raises that question. But yeah, we should understand each other, but I understand you. You do not understand me. Time for that to change. Your loyalty to to Duke Leto is all that stops me from killing you. He stares at her, wets his lips, and simply put, yeah, it's his only the most rigid control kept him from calling the guard. Control, and the suspicion now that the woman might not permit it. His skin crawled with the memory of how she had controlled him. In the moment of hesitation, she could have drawn a weapon and killed him. No doubt about it. And Hawat's question here is really important. Does every human have this blind spot? He wondered. Can any of us be ordered into action before he can resist? The idea staggered him. Who could stop a person with such power? Yeah, good question. You've glimpsed the fist within the Bene Gesserit glove, she said. We talk about agency and hands throughout the symbolism of hands all the way through the Dune series. And here we get the fist and the Bene Gesserit glove. We have all sorts here, and I think even Thufir's hands here as well. We'll see, but that's it. The fist and the Bene Gesserit glove, and again, the threats really just keep continuing, don't they? They're not particularly subtle, but they're not overt. Few glimpse it and live. There you go. What I've just done to you, you're lucky you're not dead. And what I did was a relatively simple thing for us. You've not seen my entire arsenal. Think on that. And of course, I've put there, you might like this one, so that she's bragging. Dear, oh dear. There is a little bit of pride that's coming out of in Jessica, the bragging, and it's all Bene Gesserit focused, really. It's not to do with the Atreides. And of course, think on that. She says, this is nothing. You haven't seen what I can do. And how it goes there, if he sees himself as a weapon, surely he must see her now as one. Why aren't you destroying the Duke's enemies? It's a good question. What would you have me destroy? And the response is this. It would make him a weakling. Let me just get this wee bit to read it for you, folks. What would you have me destroy, she asked. Would you have me make a weakling of our Duke, have him forever leaning on me? But with such power. So here we go. We conversation about the nature of power. And we've seen a demonstration of it, haven't we? Power is a two-edged sword. I'm trying to think. There's one from Babylon 5, isn't it? Where J. Michael Straczynski, what is it? He says something is it truth is a three-edged sword? Something like that. Power is a two-edged sword. You think how easy it would be for me to shape a human being into a weapon or a tool that would attack an enemy's vitals, even your vitals. Yet, and there's that word, what would I accomplish? If enough Bene Gesserit did this, it would make all the Bene Gesserit suspect. Not too sure about this one. If all the Bene Gesserit did it, surely they would control the universe. But indeed, yeah, I suppose we get that with the honoured matres later, don't we? But here we go. This is really indicative of what the Bene Gesserit are about. I'll just read this passage here. Power's a two-edged sword, Thufir, she said. You think how easy for her to shape a human tool to thrust into an enemy's vitals. True, Thufir, even into your vitals. Yet, what would I accomplish? If enough of us Bene Gesserit did this, wouldn't it make all Bene Gesserit suspect? We don't want that, Thufir. We do not wish to destroy ourselves. Sorry, we do not wish to destroy ourselves, she nodded. We truly exist only to serve. Right. That's that little line there. And of course, is that the first time or the second time that we've heard that statement? You get in a sense that it's correct in a roundabout way. Thufir says, again, I cannot answer you, he said. You know I cannot answer you. So this is the third time she's basically asked him, and three times he's denied. He's not denied anything, but he can't talk about it. He's staying stum. I cannot answer you, and you know that I cannot answer you. He's trying to suggest something. And I've made a wee note, can't she figure this out, that it's possibly Leto's hand behind this? She keeps pushing the thing with Hawat anyway. Oh, where would we be? Yeah, let's see. 70. Sorry, just to find my notes here. Um, yeah, and again, it's thought she has great powers, yes, but would these not make her an even more formidable tool for the Harkonnens? And that's where Thufir goes with that. Sure, yeah. Oh, she's got fun. That'll make her an even more impressive Harkonnen agent. Um, and I've just written idiot next to that. At this point, if she is a Harkonnen agent, I think he would know. Jessica points out that this stage, the Duke can be killed easily by his friends or his enemies. And again, basically, about trust, I suppose, I trust you to get to the bottom of this suspicion and remove it. And I've written he can't. And he, again, we've got one of these little quick back and forwards. If it proves baseless, he said, if, she sneered. If, he said, you are tenacious, she said. Cautious, he said, and aware of the error factor. And it's kind of, we want to hear something like that from Thufir at this point. The word cautious is fundamentally associated with Paul and the Bene Gesserit to a degree, and we get the sense that being cautious is often the safe thing to do. Being cautious and aware of the error factors. So this leaves Jessica to pose another question. And it really is, she's trying to get his trust here, but it's a hard fight, isn't it? It's almost impossible. I'll pose another question for you. What does it mean to you that you stand before another human, that you're bound and helpless, and the other human holds a knife at your throat, yet this other human refrains from killing you, frees you from your bonds, and gives you the knife to use as you will? She lifted herself out of the chair, turned her back on him. You may go now, Thufir. Now, she's basically presented that that's just what's been done to him. You've essentially been, and you've had a knife at your throat. You don't know it. And I'm giving you the weapon, and go. What does that say about that person? And the old mentat arose, hesitated. And we get this, just, I think, hand creeping toward the deadly weapon behind it, beneath his tunic. Again, he's a very obvious movement. He was reminded of the bull ring and of the Duke's father. Here we go. Who'd been brave no matter what his other failings. That sounds like somebody picking out one good quality amongst a whole heap of bad ones, doesn't it? He was brave no matter all the other ones. And one day of the corrida long ago, the fierce black beast had stood there, head bowed, immobilized and confused. The old Duke had turned his back on the horns, cape thrown flamboyantly over one arm, while cheers rained down from the stands. I am the bull and she the matador, Hawat thought. He withdrew his hand from the weapon, glanced at the sweat glistening in his empty palm. And I thought it's kind of interesting. I'm the bull, she the matador. And in that sense, of course, I suppose both the bull and the matador end up dead in the story with the Duke's father. But it's I was got the sense that the bull was drugged, and the Duke's father turning his back on the bull is a show of bravura. And other feelings, perhaps, as well. And I suppose he sees himself as the bull. It was the bull that killed Leto, wasn't it? As far as we know. And in this case, yeah, I'm the bull. She's the matador. I'm the drugged animal. He is drugged, by the way, and he's tired. And she's the killer. He knew whatever the facts proved to be in the end, he would never forget this moment, nor lose the sense of supreme admiration for the Lady Jessica. So no matter what, this has been a duel basically between the two. He has lost hard, and he's allowed to walk out of the room with his life. I think Jessica's been the more powerful, but certainly the more compassionate, the more interested. What's the word I'm looking for? The more astute in terms of the intrigue. And she really has kind of schooled him a bit. His feelings are obvious here. I think some of them are pointed out. And how she treats him is to a degree respectful, but I think at the point where she makes him sit and starts the threatening, this demonstration of power, I don't know whether she's not being taken seriously or not, or which I doubt, or it's just to do with the suspicions that everybody has put upon her. But we come to the end of this chapter. No matter what, he's got respect. He admires her. Supreme admiration. No, I would think so, actually. He's just had his ass handed to him, hasn't he? And she's let him live. Quietly, he turned and left the room. There you go. Jessica lowered her gaze from the reflection in the windows, turned and stared at the closed door. Now we'll see some proper action, she whispered. And so we will. Time for things to get kicking, really, isn't it? As we hit chapter 18. We're going to hit a few short chapters in a bit. Thank goodness. Yeah, as I said, we're heading on our way toward chapter 18 next. We're heading towards chapter 22, where we'll finish the first book of Dune. And we're doing rightly, folks. It's a great chapter, this. There's a lot of setting up. And I suppose there's not too much of our usual exposition, etc. But we get a real insight, finally, here into some idea of what kind of power the Bene Gesserit have. And the level of restraint that they have, I think. We get the real sense that the Bene Gesserit don't want to destroy themselves by taking power, that they're essentially a power behind the throne, power behind almost everything. And I think the interactions between Thufir, again, this is another one of these pairings off, but this one's quite... these people are both on the same side, but it's a confrontation, isn't it? They're both at each other here, and it's simply, this is all set up by Jessica to get to the heart of the matter. What the hell's going on? Basically, she wants to know what it's all about. The whole Duncan Idaho being hammered is really just the setup and the contrivance that allows us to lead to this confrontation. You know, and so as I said, next chapter is where things really start to kick off. You know, and we'll get that. We've had those two gigantic chapters, where we set out to go look at the spice mining operation, followed by the banquet scene. They've done so much to set up certain characters, certain situations, the nature of the planet, the nature of the economy, spice. You know, the flora and fauna of the world, and also, you know, getting a real sense of the religious and superstitious beliefs of the Fremen, who we haven't really met too much of yet. We've only really had interactions through two characters, Mapes and Stilgar, who we've only briefly met. You know, so it is. We're getting a sense things are starting to shift here. You could almost this is something that Herbert does very well, by the way. This kind of thing where you have two characters within a short distance of each other, really working. I suppose a kind of little mental duel or mental gunfight. There's one in particular. I think it's later on, many chapters down the road, or many books down the road. I think it's to do with a Bene Chilax sort of trying to take out a Bene Gesserit. And it's the two of them operating, I suppose, in the Bene Gesserit Tao, if you like, the way of observation of minutiae. And it's a whole chapter in the book. I can't remember which book it's in, but it kind of reads like a gunfight, you know, Wild West gunfight, or two samurais kind of doing a Sanjuro kind of thing. And the level of detail in that kind of interaction, yet within the book only a little bit of time passes. It's very interesting. And as I said, it reminds me, these kind of things remind me of aristeia that you'll get in the Iliad, I suppose, where you get two characters pair off. And it's about their attributes, etc. So we got to see some of Hawat's work, ideas at work there, I suppose, how he goes about his business. he didn't give up Leto in the end, did he? So in regards to what Jessica wanted out of this, she hasn't got 100% what she wants, but she's got a lot more information in terms of what Hawat wanted from this situation. The key thing for him, I suppose, as he went into it was, how do I salvage this? Wasn't, let me just find it there. Where are we? Hawat is. Where are you, Hawat, the first time you turn up? Bear with me a wee second, folks. Just I see that. I just wanted to check that. Drunken fool of an Idaho studies Jessica's fate. How can he save this situation? So, really, in terms of his motivation as he goes in, how it's been put in this situation by Drunken Duncan, and in terms of what he wants, how can he save this situation? I don't think he's been doing a particularly good job at trying to salvage it, but at the same time, I'd say he hasn't been trying to wreck it. Maybe not. Reaching for a weapon, I think, is a threatening gesture. I wouldn't, it's the sort of thing you should be careful who you do that sort of thing around. Especially if you're armed and they're armed, it's not something that you would, if you see what I mean, it's not a smart thing to do. So there is a threat of violence from him to a degree. I don't think it could be carried out. We also get the sense that he thinks he has an idea of what the Bene Gesserit get up to. I wonder how much that correlates with what's just happened to him. Because the level of control, the power that this one woman has over him. And essentially, he's pretty much been raped in a sense, hasn't he? Mentally raped, full control over his body, and no control at all. No, how does he put it? It's just right. Totally under control. Most rigid, skin crawled with the memory. And his questions about this are, again, this is an eye-opener for us in terms of the Bene Gesserit, this chapter. Does every human have this blind spot? Can any of us be ordered before we can have a chance to resist? Who could stop such a person? And very importantly, I suppose this will come in at the end of the book. And it's not to do with Paul. Isn't that the case? It's to do with Fade and Rutha. Let me just catch up with your comments for a wee second, folks. I'm going to grab some juice here. Excuse me. And interesting that Jessica uses we've run over that. I'll just do it again. The image of a doctor diagnosing a disease. She's playing the role of Yuri, one might say. Both have misread the real doctor, but are willing to play it being a doctor. Yeah. Kevin Wolf says she needs not only to bring him up to speed, but to the realization that his perception of the power balance between the two of them is inverted. Chapter House and how is that for that we and how its weakness? Yeah. I mean, power balance between them. I'm not too sure if it's simply that he's unaware of it. I think there is a power balance within the household, and I think that this is what Jessica, as you're saying, Kevin. I think she identifies where the spheres of household influence overlap or bounce off each other. That's where the Harkonnens have identified a chink in their armor, if you like, and why they've gone after this. Of course, the whole thing isn't about Jessica. It is entirely to get at Thufir. And I'd say in that sense that it's been done, hasn't it? The Harkonnens have got to him. And the suspicion, regardless of to have the Atreides mucking around, being suspicious of each other, trying to work that out. Leto is certain it's not Jessica. They know that they're trying to make it Jessica, but it's put a certain suspicion into his head, and he because he's a mentat, he's running with it, isn't he? So there again, the things that we get in this chapter, I suppose, the limitations of the mentat. Yeah, and as you know, all things being considered, considering the level of threat that's against the Atreides, one of their major members of staff is shit faced, and that's not good. It's, I suppose we were just looking at things there today, and it's St. Patrick's Day today, isn't it? 2 years ago, uh, my wife and myself flew back into Northern Ireland from Amsterdam. Hmm. And they'd shut the city on us about 2 or 3 days beforehand. Hmm. It was very, very interesting, I suppose. God, I had a point to make there, but I've lost my train of thought. No, I can't remember it for the life of me. Oh, I suppose it's about being drunk, isn't it? When we were over there, I suppose when you're in foreign cities or you're traveling, that kind of thing, don't know your way around too well, you should not get drunk. It's a stupid thing to do. When we were over in Amsterdam the last time we were there 2 years ago, there was and it was at the start of the COVID scare, the COVID-19. So we were kind of watching the TV as Europe's borders kind of were shutting towards us. It kind of reminded us at the start of World War Two. We basically had plans to get out anyway, but there was a bunch of English and Scottish guys who were on a, goodness gracious, rather sadly, on one of these stag nights, and they were going around sneezing and chewing in people's faces and trying to be quite obnoxious. And one of them just disappeared overnight. And whether the locals decided to, I don't know, but he vanished. And so the rest of our holiday, we saw posters for him. You know, have you seen this guy? And on the, so it had been 2 years to the day we were flying home, and it was on the I suppose we still had the Dutch news on the thing that he'd been found in one of the canals. You know, just so drunk, not used to just take one step back and you're gone. You know, so it's never a good thing to get that bluetoed if you're away or somewhere strange, or if lots of people are trying to kill you as well, I suppose. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. The power balance between them is inverted. The power, there is no balance. I think. In that sense, Kevin, I think it's a perceived balance. I think the power entirely rests with her. Um, and I suppose if you want to take at it in a wee bit of a look at essentially the voice here is a bit like the Ring of Gyges, isn't it? Or the Ring of Power, as you might know it from Lord of the Rings. The voice here is very similar in terms of what Jessica could do with the ring. Um, sorry, what Jessica could do with the voice is very similar to the ring. If anybody doesn't know, the Ring of Gyges is the ring that the Ring of Power is based on from the Lord of the Rings, the One Ring. You'll find it in Plato's Republic, and I suppose it's a philosophical. What would you do with such a thing if you had such a thing? In terms of morality, the only moral thing that you could do with it is never use it. Bury it somewhere and make sure no one else gets it, because no matter what you do with it, because you're invisible, the Ring of Gyges makes you invisible. Everything you do is from a position of deceit or power. And so I suppose the only moral choice in picking up the Ring of Gyges is to never to put it on. It's a bit like the voice in this case, whenever Jessica is sort of saying, you know, I could be running the show here. I could kill you. I could kill him. I could have him marry me in a second. I can have what I want. But what good's that? I don't want to marry a puppet. I don't want him to think of me as a crutch. This kind of thing. And it's an interesting idea, I suppose. We're talking about the story of Macha. Is it from Emin Macha in Northern Ireland? Is where all the Irish sort of kings used to hang around. And Macha is this kind of, she's associated with the Magda, but she's married to this guy. And essentially, she's super strong, super fast. She's amazing, and he's so lucky to have such a wonderful wife. And you know, he goes along to the races, just paraphrasing the story quickly, and all the Irish heroes are all doing their "I'm so strong and I'm so fast and I'm so quick and so handsome," and he basically tells them all that my wife could outrun you, could outfight you, is stronger than you, and they force her to come to Emma Macker, Well, it's called Emma Mac now after her. Mac is her name, and they make her run a race against the Ulsterman. And she's heavily pregnant, by the way. So on the day of her birth, she runs this race and falls down at the finish line, winning, and gives birth. And so this is where the curse of the Ulstermen comes from. That supposedly in the hour of need, all the men of Ulster will drop to the ground and suffer the birthing pangs of Macha. It's one of the stories to do with Cocoon. It's one of my favourites, by the way. But there we go. So yeah, it's never a good thing getting too drunk, I suppose. I suppose St. Patrick's Day, my favourite story about St. Patrick is the one where he meets Oisin. And St. Patrick basically tells him that so Oisin's been away, and it's to do with travelling to sort of fairylands and this kind of thing. And Oisin sort of says, where is everyone? Where's all the heroes of Ulster? And St. Patrick tells him that they've all been dead for hundreds of years and they're all burning in hell because they weren't baptized. And he offers baptism, is it, to Oisin, and says, you can, allow me to baptize you, etc., and you can be in heaven, and he basically says, so what you're telling me is if I get baptized with Jesus, I get to go to heaven, but I'll be there alone, whereas all my friends, the great kings and heroes of Ulster, will be in hell. Is that what you're telling me? And he basically says, yeah. So Oisin, up yours. Up yours, St. Patrick. Tells him to basically bugger off. The idea is he gets off his horse. There's different versions of this story. And as his foot touches the ground, he ages 300 or 400 years and dies. But the idea is that Oisin gets to tell St. Patrick where to go. And he gets to go to hell with all his friends rather than be in paradise alone. There you go. There's a St. Patrick's St. Patrick's tale for you. So there we go, folks. So listen, that's been good fun tonight. As I said, thank you very much for your patience. Missing out the other one there the other day, just a bit wiped out. Getting the old Tiger video done and working away at this stuff. Excuse me. Always something to do here, and it keeps us busy. And so if anybody hasn't checked it out, we've got our new video up on the station. Just a wee bit of fun. Always enjoy these suggestions that something has to be the greatest of all time, this kind of thing. And I don't really buy into that sort of thing. But I do like a bit of quality. And certainly in terms of other people's opinions, Tiger is considered one of the finest science fiction books of all time. I absolutely love it and adore it. So we have a wee 25-minute video up there, folks. If you want to check it out, it's got a couple of minor plot spoilers, but otherwise it won't give anything away. And it's really just to sort of encourage anybody who hasn't read it. Tiger, The Star's My Destination. There we go. You'll find it pretty much in the top 10 lists of science fiction novels all the time. And it's a wonderful book. Absolute cracker. So the idea was really to try and promote something about that and get it out there. There we go. We'll have to figure out what we're going to do a video on next. Actually, so I'm open to some suggestions, but considering doing something on the culture. So there we go. Well, listen, folks, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back hopefully tomorrow night, actually, with a Sci-Fi Friday if we've got a couple of things to talk about. And then we'll see you again on Sunday at 9 o'clock GMT for chapter 18, which is, I think, quite a nice short one. We've got a couple of nice wee short chapters coming in. And as I said, this is where it all starts to go very badly for the Atreides, the beginning of the fall of the House of Atreides, if you like. And interesting enough little section, So I'm looking forward to it, and I've got my batteries recharged, so definitely having fun with this tonight. Throat's a bit better, etc., etc. So thanks very much, guys, for joining me as always. And I'll add it to my list. I'm on Heinlein right now. Great stream. Thanks. You're welcome, Kevin. I've got a whole bunch of Heinlein downstairs. I tore into his really big, thick novels, but I've got a bunch of them downstairs that I haven't read, and I really like my Heinlein. So there we go. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone, says Kevin. Thank you very much, Kevin. But we have to do something on Heinlein at some point as well. One of the big four. So I'm curious what book you're reading at the minute, Kevin. I particularly like Stranger in a Strange Land and Time Enough for Love. And the really weird one, if you want to give yourself a hard time, is the Number of the Beast. That's bonkers. Tan Staffel, absolutely, baby. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Listen, folks, thank you very much for joining me. I'll let you head on, and I'll say good night and take care of yourselves no matter where you are. Look after yourself, and we'll see you soon. Thanks very much. All the best now. Take care. Bye-bye.